Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. 12 SANDF Special Forces operatives accused of murder and fraud are expected back at the Randburg Magistrates Court for a continuation of their bail hearing today. This will be their third appearance in court since their arrest last month. They're accused of orchestrating the 2023 murder of Hawks investigator Frans Matipa amid his probe of the Army unit's alleged involvement in another double murder. Nowukayam Dambo reports.
The 12 members of the SANDF Special Forces face as many counts of murder, fraud, theft and making false statements. The youngest of them is a 30-year-old and the eldest, a retired general and decorated army official. In their bail statements on Tuesday, they told the court they're upstanding citizens and denied having a hand in the assassination of Frans Matipa and the disappearance and murder of a foreign national believed to have links to terrorist group ISIS. Abdullah Abadiga and his bodyguard were abducted from the Mall of Africa in Midrand in December 2022. Matipa's investigation of the pair's kidnapping led them to the SANDF Special Forces. Matipa was in the process of securing a Section 205 subpoena to investigate the operatives when he was ambushed on his way to a meeting allegedly called by the SANDF to negotiate the details of the information he wanted. Nogukanyam Dambo, Eyewitness News.
The Community Safety Department in Tshwane says it will conduct its own investigation parallel to the court case of 3 municipal workers who are accused of stealing a transformer worth 7 million rand. Yesterday, the trio appeared in the Atteridgeville Magistrates Court following their arrest this week, and police now say they are looking for a third person who might be connected to the crime. Jabulile Mbata has more.
While the court case will play out on Friday, the MMC for Community Safety says internal checks are taking place to determine exactly what happened. The case initially involved 11 suspects, 10 who are contractors. Charges were withdrawn against 10, and 1 employed by the city remains in custody. The 3 Tshwane employees, aged between 40 and 50, appeared at the Atteridgeville Magistrates Court yesterday for the first time. They are facing a charge of theft of essential infrastructure. Community Safety MMC Haynes Kutsia.
We will do a follow-up on what happened on the site. We will also make sure that consequence management are taken care of. We are busy with the process to confirm that we are factual in everything that we say.
He says the city takes consequence management seriously. Jabulile Mbata, Eyewitness News.
The evidence leader in the sexual harassment probe against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge has warned a witness against committing perjury. Zinhle Ngqayi, who is Mbenenge's former secretary, is the first person to be called by the Judge President's counsel in his defense. During cross-examination yesterday, Ngqayi attributed her great recollection of events in 2022 to her memory and just by revisiting her diary. However, Advocate Salome Skeepers is not satisfied with her testimony, which has been in conflict with that of High Secretary Andiswa Mengo, who accuses the top judge of making unwanted sexual advances towards her. Ngqayi was able to recall details of the 14th of November 2022, saying Mbenenge was at the bank and then he went to deliver a lecture on the day in which Mengo alleged that the judge summoned her to the chambers and asked that she perform a sexual act on him. Skeepers has warned Ngqayi of the consequences of lying under oath.
Are you familiar with the term perjury? Perjury is where you give false testimony under oath. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to consider this very carefully. Is there anything that you have told this panel that is either not true or maybe not totally correct that you want to change now? You are also aware that if you give false evidence under oath, that is a criminal offense and you can be charged.
And Iran has charged 2 French nationals for allegedly spying for Israel. They've been detained in the country for more than 3 years on suspicion that they were spying for Israel's intelligence agency Mossad. They have also been charged with conspiracy to overthrow the regime and corruption. All 3 charges carry the death penalty. Iran is believed to hold around 20 European nationals with cases that have never been publicized in what some Western governments, including France, describe as a strategy of hostage-taking, which is aimed at extracting concessions from the West. Gold is trading at $3,360.23 an ounce. The rand is at 17.54 to the dollar, 23.94 to the pound, 20.70 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $68.57 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got some delays on the R21 south in the Kempton Park area. That's due to an accident reported to be right next to the R23 turn off. It is causing delays. Please be on the lookout there and approach with care while traveling in four ways. Faulty traffic lights at Winnie Mandela Drive and Leslie are still causing delays coming out of Witkoppen Road.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 18 and 19 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, 12 SANDF Special Forces operatives accused of killing and fraud are expected back in the Randburg Magistrates Court for a continuation of their bail hearing today.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. Choose the 8 kilometer for those walking strong, the 6.7 kilometer in honor of Mandela Month, or the 4 kilometer for families and first timers in 702's Walk the Talk. Tickets on primemediaplus.com.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang. Welcome to the show. Hope you're good. It's 5 to the weekend, so I hope the week has been going well so far. Thank you for joining us here on 702. We start with the 702 open line on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Here's the question. Is Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull for Mercedes? And do you think that would be a good or a bad move, both on the side of Max and on the side of Mercedes? There are credible reports that he is in advanced talks with Toto Wolff to join Mercedes next season. And I just think this would be a blockbuster move in Formula One. Remember Kimi Antonelli, who has been brilliant since replacing Lewis Hamilton. Him and George Russell have no contract confirmed for next year. So Mercedes is clearly window shopping here. And I know Max Verstappen is contracted to Red Bull until the end of 2028, if I'm not mistaken. 2028. But my understanding is that his contract has a release clause that would allow him to leave at the end of the season if he were to be outside the top 4 in the Drivers' Championship. I think he's third now after the Austria Grand Prix. My concern, though, here is George Russell. That's the person I'm concerned about, because I think he's more likely to be sacrificed should Verstappen make the switch to Mercedes, because he has not been announced for next year, which is highly unusual because he's doing a brilliant job for Mercedes. He's currently 4th in the Drivers' Championship. He's a long-standing Mercedes driver, and he's picked up the mantle so beautifully after Lewis Hamilton's exit. So for him to be hanging there still without clarity as we head into the halfway point of the season is quite unusual. So what do you think of this potential move by Max to Mercedes if you're a big Formula One fan? Is it a big gamble? Is it too risky? Because I think what is likely influencing him is probably the major regulation changes that are set for the next season, when the new power units will be introduced, because it's believed Mercedes are the front runners in this respect. I know Red Bull as well would be manufacturing their own power units for the first time. So who's going to have a faster car after the regulation changes is really the driving force here. So what do you think of this potential move? Let me know, please. I hope Mercedes knows what it's getting itself into here, because Max comes with a little bit of baggage. He's not the easiest person to handle, and he's broken his teammates. So good luck to Mercedes. I mean, he is a great driver. Don't get me wrong. I've never questioned that. But he does come with some baggage. Let me know your thoughts. Another issue I want us to chat about on the open line this morning, and I'm interested in your thoughts on, is what the Correctional Services Minister, Pieter Groenewald, has said. We touched a bit on it yesterday, but he has now clarified the suggestion that is made for bringing back corporal punishment for individuals who are unable to afford bail for minor offences in order to alleviate overcrowding in prisons. He was on the midday report yesterday with Mandy Winner. So what I'm going to do is play you that interview. Here, listen to how he justifies it, right? How he explains it, and then let me know your thoughts on his clarification. Do you understand where he's coming from? I'm also going to bring in the inspecting judge of Correctional Services, Justice Edwin Cameron as well, who I must tell you disagrees with the suggestion by the Correctional Services Minister. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, though, we're going to do the hanging out feature. And today I'm hanging out with Bonang Mohale. He's a respected businessman. He's an activist. He really is the embodiment of integrity and justice. We're going to get to know him better between 10 and 11 o'clock. He's an avid photographer. He loves jogging. Actually, I normally see him when I leave my place to go to come to work. I normally see him jogging in the area. He's the Chancellor of the University of the Free State. He's led some of the country's biggest organizations, Bidvest, ArcelorMittal, Business Unity South Africa, just to name a few. And he's received numerous awards, including the African Union's Lifetime Achievement Award and being named one of the 100 most reputable Africans. That's a big deal. We're going to get to know him better between 10 and 11. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do the Thursday Dialogue. Today, we're going to look at the scourge of youth online gambling. According to the National Gambling Board, gambling participation among young South Africans has been steadily increasing, and it's driven by the ease of access to gambling platforms through mobile devices. And it's concerning. In fact, News 24 has been reporting this week that South African teenagers are becoming addicted to sports betting from as young as 14. Parents, what are you doing about that? Because some of them, when they win, they buy you fridges. That's one of the examples News 24 has given. And I think we need to be more vigilant as parents. From News 24's research, these are students from private and former Model C schools. And I think this is a crisis because it's addictive to young people. It's a social ill, and we need to deal with the problem because these online gambling companies are targeting young people and grant recipients. So we're going to be focusing on this at 11 o'clock and bring in other stakeholders as well to try and figure out what we can do to solve this before it gets worse. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Bunny, you calling us from Brakpan. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Clement.
Sure.
Yes, man. Yeah, it's like this movie is like 5-6 years too late for me. As you say, if you're really staunch F1 fan,
yeah,
understanding the sport at the level that the driver is not just the driver. Some of these guys come with engineering background, degrees, etc. And my comment was, Mercedes had an opportunity to sign Max when he was much younger. I think it was into his second season when Bottas was underperforming. And what a lot of people don't know or understand is when you saw the shift happen when Red Bull started moving closer to Mercedes, is because they lost someone like Rosberg. And people don't know that Rosberg is actually an engineer, a thorough engineer. So in aerodynamics, you can actually build rocket ships. And when they lost that edge, when they lost Rosberg is when Red Bull, and also with the new changes in the car, moving from hybrid to all these fancy names that they have. And I suspect that Max is going to give them that edge again. Yeah. Because there's new regulations coming in. And you were just spot on. I was just telling your producer, you were spot on because they're already sacrificing George. If you looked at the report this morning, Mercedes is only offering George a 1-year contract plus an extension of another 1 year depending on his performance.
Yeah.
So they're clearly moving in a direction where I think Max is going to lead that team. Max has never been beaten by a teammate. So by the way, Wherever
And he
top.
doesn't like being beaten by a teammate.
No, he's just that competitive sports person. I liked him. As I said, 5-6 years ago, I really liked him. But then, obviously Abu Dhabi happened, and that just whole thing left us
Changed
all
everything.
A sour taste.
Yeah, true. Bunny, thanks for your thoughts, brother. I don't think Max is a team player at all. So I worry about that. But I also, my biggest concern in all of this for me, honestly, is George Russell. Because I think George has been brilliant in Mercedes from the time when Lewis Hamilton was really not performing. George was was representing Mercedes. He was holding the fort for Mercedes. And since Lewis has left, George has really been doing well with the circumstances that he's faced with. And the fact that Mercedes are seemingly willing to sacrifice him should they take on Max. But also Kimi Antonelli. He's a young boy. How old is Kimi? 18, 19? He's a brilliant young man who is a future star for Mercedes. Do you think Max is going to be an incredible team player to Antonelli as a mentor? I think that there's potential that he may break him, like he's broken some of his teammates. Here are some of your WhatsApp voice notes.
Morning, Clement, and good morning to my fellow 702 listeners. I'm very, very excited about the prospects of Max joining Mercedes-Benz. I like our current drivers, but if I'm being totally honest, I don't think that neither of them are going to take us where we belong. And so I think Max will, provided that they don't spend all the money on trying to get him out of his current contract with Red Bull. I am for it. I'm very, very excited. I've always admired Max, even when he was competing with Lewis. I admire his driving. And so, I'm very excited, very, very excited. I hope Toto can make it work.
Yeah, I bet you they're going to pay so much money. They're going to pay so much money to bring him up. Land on the WhatsApp line says, Clement, we don't want Max at Mercedes. We're okay with Kimi and George Boy. Max is a finished product. Well, Toto doesn't seem to agree with you, Len, because he's in advanced talks with him. It's 19 minutes after 9.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Clemmy, goeiemorgen man. Floris here from the Western Cape. Clemmy, so just imagine a 14-year-old steal a bread because he was hungry. And now he get caned. And because he cannot afford a 1,000 rand bail. And then another 14-year-old steal a microwave, a TV, and then he doesn't get caned because his parents can afford a 1,000 rand bail. Crime is crime. So we need to fix society, the ills in society. We live in a criminal, violent society, and it needs to start at home. Parents should start taking responsibility. It starts at home, how they act and what they do in front of their kids. Have a good job, bye-bye.
Yeah, and as parents, aren't you asking your children questions about where they're getting the money from? When they see that they're buying pizzas. News 24 says some of the students they've spoken to, they use the money to just get pizzas. One of the students bought a fridge for their mom. Don't you ask your kids where they're getting the money from? I think we need to be more vigilant because this is addictive. It is. And it's very easy for these young ones who are younger than 18 to bypass the system because on these gambling sites, of course, you've got to be 18 years or older. Sometimes they use your own IDs as parents or their older siblings' IDs to get access and they start betting. That's a serious concern, the issue of online gambling, and we're going to talk about it at 11 o'clock. But take a listen to other WhatsApp voice notes on the Correctional Services Minister and the suggestion that is made.
Hey, Clement. Yeah, just with regards to the corporal punishment, I love the idea of a criminal being beaten as much as the next guy. But I think there's a large amount of research that shows that that sort of punitive measure actually doesn't reduce crime. It doesn't rehabilitate. And frankly, I'm not sure it's humane in a society we want to live in. You can't just beat people into good behavior. That's not how it works. They're not children. As much as I think there is an overcrowding problem, the problem exists way before that down the chain. There's a reason they're sitting in jail for 3 years waiting for trial. That's what needs to be fixed. We're fixing it at the wrong side.
Yeah.
Hey, morning, Clement. Over in Fossilvast. Clement, I think Groenewald has a point here about this overcrowding in the cells. Not only that, Clement, you see, if we can introduce such, corruption will go down. Let's say, for instance, Clement, a traffic cop catches you, then you have offensed. The reason why we take bribe, we don't have confidence into the justice system. Once they take your fingerprints, Clement, you'll be a criminal forever. So instead of maybe 2 lashes because you jump a red robot, then it's all your case is done, or maybe a spot fine, something like that. That's why people will keep on buying them cold drinks, because we know that once your fingerprints are taken, you won't see justice, even though they were wrong. So it goes back to the same thing, that even during the July looting, people stole small things. Instead of getting 2 lashes, then they are off. That person, once they take your fingerprints, Clement, you are on the criminal, these records forever. And to get your name off there, it's a long process. So we need something that will be quicker, because it's petty crimes. You have stolen something small, or you have done a small offense, spot fine, or something that we do and finish quickly. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, and to be clear, I absolutely disagree with this suggestion by the Correctional Services Minister. I think it's cruel to subject people to that. I think it's barbaric. I think it's backward. We live in a violent society. Our society is too violent, extremely. And we can't institutionalize violence like that. But then again, the minister is trying to say, let's open up the debate, because keeping people who have committed minor crimes in prison isn't also ideal. So I get the minister's concern, which has been raised many times by many people, even people like Justice Cameron, because keeping them in jail, they face the risk of sexual assault. Some of them may be recruited into gangs, the trauma that's associated with that. So being there destabilizes their lives. So what's the solution? Take a listen to the Correctional Services Minister speaking to Mandy Wiener on the Midday Report yesterday. This is how he explained this suggestion.
I want to try and understand what you mean by corporal punishment. Are we talking here about giving 100 lashes for stealing a loaf of bread? No. What because that's where your mind goes immediately. How do you define corporal punishment?
No. That's not the maximum standard always was 6.
But you're talking lashes, right? Like a shambok, like you're going to get cuts. Like is that really?
No. Let me explain. We had that situation. I know people who receive lashes. You get, for instance, 6 lashes with a heavy cane, or 6 lashes with a light cane. It is very under good supervision where it takes place, and it is a matter the court must decide how many lashes of what type of a cane, and that is the effect of what I meant when I said corporal punishment. You cannot go out that standard, and it has always been like that. These days, let me say when I was young. And,
but Minister, it was a different time. It was a different era. I mean, doesn't it just perpetuate violence? It's a bit barbaric.
No, I know that will be a view. It is a view. That's why I said let's open the debate, because there are also other views. And what I wanted to say when I was young, I don't want to go back to apartheid, because I know that is what most people maybe will think. The fact of the matter is that when I was at university, then there was, for the first year of students, you have to go and get some fruit. In fact, it means you go and steal some fruit. If they caught you those days, you could have received lashes. But, today, you go to court and you are putting amongst people, some becoming hard criminals. And I say again, from a humane perspective, from whether it is barbaric or not, is it not more barbaric to keep a person in an overcrowded facility awaiting trial?
What about community service?
Well, of course, we want to do community service. And I said it, I'm on record many times, that we must ensure that, fixing potholes, for instance, and everything. But again, with our budget constraints, you must always also remember, the moment you take a team out, you need more wardens to go with them to ensure that there's tight security. So we need more of those people. We're going to start with that. We already started with some other pilot places, very few, but I want to expand that, and I want to enhance that community service. I'm also working, for instance, on when it comes to parolees, but okay, that's another discussion. But the fact of the matter is, this is specific for our juveniles and specific for remand detainees.
Yeah, so that's how he explained it on the midday report. Oh, yeah, I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because I'm actually trying to remember when this system was implemented also during apartheid, like, were there white people being given lashes as well for these minor crime? I mean, the majority were definitely black people, right? And not because the majority of people are black, because, I mean, we lived in a system where we were subhuman, basically. We were sub-citizens in this country. So it really, 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 sends shivers down my spine just thinking about how in 2025, that's still something we think could work. I get where the minister's coming from in as far as trying to find a solution here, because you've got overcrowding in our prisons and some of these crimes are minor. But what happens when you beat someone up who's innocent? So that means what's that saying? Innocent until proven guilty? Well, that's not going to work in this instance, is it? But also some people go and steal bread because they're hungry. This is not to say crime is justified. I'm trying to make a point that you beat them up, they're still poor. You haven't changed anything, right? So in a violent society like that, institutionalizing violence like that, is that really the solution? Abraham, you're calling us from Soshanguve. What do you think?
Good morning. How are you?
Sure, man. Go ahead.
So, look, I think we need to understand the purpose of bail. I get the purpose of bail is to secure the attendance of the accused court again. Now, if you give you lashes, are you saying that I'm guilty already? Because the mere fact that I've stolen, but who said I'm guilty?
Good question.
You see, because with bail money, remember you can go back and get your refund from the court. But if you give me lashes, what is it that I'm going to get back from you?
Exactly.
And you were talking about corporal punishment that was being cancelled at school. So now what happens now if a teacher is giving a child a corporal punishment? Is that teacher going to be given corporal punishment again? So we are contradicting ourselves here.
Yeah. Abraham in Soshanguve, thanks for your call.
Good morning, Clement. I'm not sure when you play the minister's explanation whether it will go along with what I'm saying. This corporal punishment thing, it shouldn't be, as far as I understand corporal punishment. They should make them do community service without being paid, under supervision, of course, for a certain period of time. If it's 6 months, 5 months, 3 months, let them do community service, hard labor, at the same time teaching them how to work, do gardening wherever, cleaning government buildings, gardens, and all those things. Let them do that. Go to civil societies, organizations, and do community service instead of corporal punishment. You can't beat somebody. Because at school I was beaten when I was growing up, but I still went to school. So they will be beaten and will still do crime. So let them do something productive while they are learning something as well themselves. That's all I'm saying. Sindile.
Hi, Clement. It's Rulof here from Alberton. I'm just thinking about what that guy said about that Minister of the Correctional, if you know what he said. I believe a child needs to get hiding from his parents, not abuse the child, not hit him nearly dead, In Proverbs, it says, Proverbs 13, verse 24, it says, spare the rod, then you hate your child. I mean, like, when we were younger and we were naughty, disrespectful or whatever, your parents reset you back to factory resetting. And I mean, like, I don't know if it happened to you, but when we were growing up, you got a hiding if you were naughty.
9:31. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. When we come back, we'll hear from more of your calls and WhatsApps. I'll also play you the interview that I did with Justice Edwin Cameron, who, of course, works a lot with prisoners. He's the inspecting judge of Correctional Services. He disagrees with this suggestion, but he does say that we need to be creative around solutions on this matter because it's getting out of control, the issue of overcrowding in our prisons. That's coming up after Eyewitness News headlines. Fiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Johannesburg City Council is set to elect a new speaker following the recent removal of Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu. She was fired through an Aljama motion of no confidence last week. The NPA says it could take its bid to bring former Free State Premier Ace Magashule's ex-assistant Murari Cholota to the Constitutional Court. This is part of the state's plans to revive its corruption case against Cholota after suffering a legal blow at the Bloemfontein High Court last month. And the Colombian Navy says it has seized an unmanned submarine equipped with a Starlink antenna off its Caribbean coast. The vessel was not carrying drugs, but the Navy believes it was a trial run by a cocaine trafficking cartel. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN Traffic is brought to you by cars.co.za. Let's find what moves you. Amu, how are the roads moving this morning?
Well, Clement, we've got some issues. We've got some issues in Midrand. There's an accident there. In fact, the cars are not moving here because there's an accident that happened near Olifantsfontein Road and it's causing delays coming out of Samarand Avenue. About a 5-minute hold up there. Please be on the lookout there. While traveling on the R21 South, another accident scene. This one is in the Kempton Park area. It happened right after the Binoni off-ramp R23 and it's causing delays. If you were traveling in the city of Tshwane, do remember to be on the lookout for roadworks taking place on the N1 South approaching Linwood Road. And there's also some issues along the R80 East Mabopane Highway just as you approach Eskiampakele exit. I'll have more updates for you at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
8 out of 10 radio listeners suffer from CAR or car advertising on repeat. Symptoms include fatigue, anxiety, and confusion. With so many car ads coming at you on your daily commute, buying or selling a car can feel overwhelming. But there is a cure.
Cars.co.za. Whatever car you want to buy or sell, cut through the and just go to Cars.co.za and let's find what moves you. Cars.co.za.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
702's Walk the Talk, 6.7 kilometers, 8 kilometers, and 4 kilometers. What should I be preparing for if I'm going to be walking one of those distances?
What the most important thing is your shoe wear. And even though those distances are shorter, you still need to wear a shoe that's got a proper midsole. And then what I would also suggest is that you don't wear a slip-on shoe. You have to wear a shoe with proper lacing.
Dr. Nelfrey Kemp is a podiatrist. Grab your tickets now. Go to primediaplus.com and secure your place.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Looking to get more out of your business insurance? Well, Business Outsurance are experts in business insurance for dental, physiotherapy, surgical, and other medical specialties. That's why over 100,000 businesses across various industries trust Business Outsurance. Switch to Business Outsurance and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. Get a quick and easy quote today. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed, insured, and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
As the official retail partner of the Springboks, Pick n Pay is proud to back the box and give you the chance to be the ultimate smart supporter with Pick n Pay ASAP. Money or the box on 702. WhatsApp your name, ID number, and the word ASAP to 072 702 1702. You could face the ultimate choice, a mystery Springbok supporter prize, or Pick and Pay ASAP vouchers worth up to 2,000 Rand. It's time to show your box spirit. Money or the box with Pick and Pay ASAP. Friday on 702 Drive with John Perlman. T's and C's on primemediaplus.com.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
24 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with your calls on 011-883-0702. I've been asking you about Max Verstappen's potential move to Mercedes. What do you think of that? And of course, this suggestion by the Correctional Services Minister, Peter Groenewald, that let's bring back corporal punishment for people who are awaiting trial, who have committed minor crimes, and that would be the solution to dealing with overcrowding. I mean, who would agree to even administer that? Yeah, it's quite something else, right? Let's start with your WhatsApp voice notes on 072 702 1702.
Hi, good morning, Clement. I think we'll all be surprised how many people will be for that lashing. I'm not for it because I think it's just a waste of time. And who's going to do the lashing? Imagine all that energy exerted just to whoop someone. No. But our communities are already doing that. If you get caught stealing or doing whatever in any of our informal settlements, the community beats you up before they hand you over to the police. So I don't know. Is it the fact that our law enforcers can't do it and that we as citizens are allowed to do it?
Clement, morning, Brian here. Yeah, listen, when we were lighties, so like I'm 60 now. So when we were 15, 14, 12 years old, you feared going to the cops for jacks, but it was a fear. So choose right or wrong. And when you went for a hiding, trust me, you got a hiding. So it wasn't just about black people, it was for everybody.
Hi, Clement. I think it's Tutugani here from Tembisa. I think, I'm more of support of the community service route, because I feel if we would use that route, then these guys would be service to society and also get a chance to learn a skill in the process. Maybe get them to do some community service. That would also help the government to cut down on some expenditure. For example, the other guy was saying maybe clean government buildings, do guardians in the government building. So you don't have to hire people to do that. You can get those guys to do all that work and then cut down on that expenditure. In a way, they are giving back to society.
Good morning, Clement. It's David here in Durban. With regards to the Minister Groenewald proposal or suggestion of corporal punishment, that thing will not work. I mean, how are you going to explain someone 14, 15 or 18 who has committed a crime of some sort like murder, and you're going to maybe do corporal punishment on them and just whiplash them? I think Groenewald needs to come to the right senses of turning prisons into hotels. They need to make sure that people suffer when they're in prison, so that when they come out, they know, don't commit crime, because it's not going to be a honky-dory. You get a bed and breakfast in South African prison. People must fear the prison. Put me in contact with the minister, and I've got nice suggestions that will keep people out of prisons. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestion. So to be clear, the minister says this would be for minor crimes, 1. 2, look, we have a constitutional democracy. We believe in human rights, right? So even when you are in prison, you still enjoy human rights. Of course, there are certain rights that get taken away from you, your right to freedom of movement. I mean, there are a number of rights that get taken away from you when you're in prison. You can't move as you wish. you are in this confined area, you eat what is cooked for you. There's a lot that makes prisons difficult. And maybe you're suggesting that let's make it more harsher. But we can't do that to a point that it starts impacting on people's human rights. But still, we need to find other solutions. I mean, did you hear that we're spending 11 million rand on foreign nationals who have committed crimes? That's a lot of money. One of the suggestions he has is that let's take them back to their countries of origins. Let them go serve time there. Isn't that a sensible solution? Because that is going to help reduce the overcrowding in our prisons. We need to start having conversations with countries where foreign nationals, right, and I'm talking specifically about those that do not have the papers, like that are illegal, right? And I understand, of course, the complexity of some people have just been struggling to get their documents because there's just so much corruption at Home Affairs that they're expected to pay 20,000 rand even to get something legitimately, to be put, in the front of the line. But let's have a conversation with the countries where most of the people who are committing crimes are coming from, so that they get deported there, they can serve their sentences there. Isn't that the collaboration we need between countries? Joe, you calling from the Val. Good morning.
Good, Clement, brother.
Sure. Go ahead.
Clement, I'm thinking that this thing that Minister is saying is true to a certain extent, especially this one of community service, because it impacts so many departments. I'm making a simple example. Let's say someone is arrested for shoplifting. The police vehicle standing there at that shoplifting and processing or arresting that particular criminal, it will take maybe at least 2 hours to open the docket, detain this person and so forth. And you find the person has actually stolen something that worth 2 rand. I'm making an example. But previously, you'd find that particular shop, they'll make a person to clean. And the person will not commit the same crime. I'm not trying to say maybe they must be inhuman and stuff or speak on behalf of the police, but I'm thinking really it can help in so many ways, because really the way things are happening, even the court system get clogged, because this particular person who's arrested for shoplifting will be there, will be detained, will go to court. Then it just doesn't make any sense. So I support community thing, man. Yeah, community thing will help a lot. That car that is standing there, that shop, can actually prevent haste. Instead of standing for 2 rand for shoplifting at a certain store there, it was supposed to be on the road preventing haste or maybe even serious crimes. So really we need to think about it.
Got you. Joe in the Val. In fact, let me let you listen to Justice Edwin Cameron, who is the inspecting judge of Correctional Services, because I asked him to come in quickly on the show, but he was going to be in a meeting. So I pre-recorded this interview with him quickly before we went live at 9 o'clock, just to get what his thoughts are on the suggestions and what he thinks the solutions are to dealing with overcrowding in our prisons. And then I'm going to come back to more of your calls and WhatsApps. Justice Cameron, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Always a pleasure to be speaking to you, Clement, and to 702's listeners.
So you are one person who knows a lot about, of course, how overcrowded our prisons are. You constantly interact with these issues as the inspecting judge of Correctional Services. What do you make of this suggestion by the Minister of Correctional Services to bring back corporal punishment as a way to deal with overcrowding in our prisons?
Clement, the Minister raises a really troubling issue, and I actually support his raising it. And the reason is not that I support his conclusion, but that I think it's a real debate that we South Africans should be having. And let me explain why. We have an alternative which the Minister's raised. You either beat someone, which is cruel and one might say barbaric, or you put them into Polsmoor, into overcrowded cells where they are at risk of pathogens, of sexual assault, of being recruited into gangs. And to me, that's a real dilemma. I know where I come down, because I think our society is so violent that we should not have authoritative, institutionalized more violence. But I'm on the side of the Minister in this, simply that he has raised an issue. And if his issue makes us, the public, think more about how we should improve conditions in prisons rather than have to resort to the barbaric method of beating people, then I'm glad he's done it.
Yeah, and of course, some of the members of parliament have joined this debate, and some are suggesting that maybe community service is the way to go. Could that be the solution here?
Definitely. But for community service to work, you need competent, uncorrupt, hardworking people, and we have those in the prison system, the personnel. I've said it before, but I fear that until we have competent people, not deployees, not shady people who are recycled again and again into our governmental efforts and initiatives, until we have those, I'm not sure that is going to work. But the idea is wonderful and I support it.
What about the issue of foreign nationals? I think one of the things he revealed is that we're spending about 11 million rand a day on foreign nationals who are arrested. I'm not sure if these are the ones that are awaiting trial, but the suggestion is maybe we need to start having conversations with the countries where these foreign nationals are coming from. How would that look like? Is that something that's possible in your view?
Clement, let me confirm the minister's figure. We've got about 22,000 non-nationals. I don't call them foreigners because many of these people are brothers and sisters and cousins from Lesotho and Botswana and Zimbabwe and Mozambique. They speak the same languages as our official languages. So I prefer to call them non-nationals. 11,000 awaiting trial and about the same number who've already been sentenced. Now, your question to me is, should we be speaking to our neighboring states? And the answer is definitely.
Yeah, to be deported, and just to clarify, to be deported to those countries, their countries of origin, to serve their terms.
Correct, Clement. And we've taken up the cases of many foreign nationals who say, I'm ready for parole, but they're not willing to give me parole and they're not willing to deport me. So we've taken up those cases. We've tried to have meetings with Home Affairs. We've tried to have meetings with other agencies, with the Border Management Agency, to find a solution to that. But can I say one last thing, and I don't want to weigh your listeners too much. There's an underlying problem in Trump's America and in Southern Africa. The people who flock to us are looking for sustenance, which is what each of us want to do. And as I said previously, many of them have relatives, many of them have deep roots in South Africa. So I think we should go back a step and say, what are the root causes in those countries that we want to deport them to? And what can our government do to fix those root causes? There was strong political allegations when President Mbeki, and this I know from my time as a constitutional court judge, he and Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma refused to say that the 2000 election was violently stolen from the people of Zimbabwe. Whereas my colleagues, Sisi Kampepe and Justice Moseneke, said that. So are we responsible in any way for the dysfunction that brings those non-nationals into our country? That's a question I'd love your viewers to give their views on, your listeners, Clement.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken so extensively about what our role has been to the destabilization that we've seen in other countries, which has then led to people flocking here for opportunities because we chose to what? Just keep quiet and prioritize the brotherhood instead of calling out and taking key good action. Thank you so much for making time for us, Justice Cameron. I really appreciate it.
Clement, can I just say you're braver than I am? You've stated it more robustly than I dared to do.
Nah, I can never be braver than you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Cheers.
This week on Polytricking with Sidi Madia.
I'm joined in studio by Bonang Mohale. What should the NC's response be, though, to a name like Helen Zille? You've got her being touted by the DA. You hear people saying Lindy, where Mazibuko must find a way to also contest, to Lee Joburg.
Yeah.
Some people are saying the NC should look back at a Park style.
I think that we don't need a messiah, because any approach that says there must be a messiah, whether that messiah comes through the ANC or comes through the DA, you are not going to solve the problem, because the problems in Johannesburg are systematic, they are structured, they are historical, because you can bring a messiah and that messiah is going to be dwarfed because the damage is so huge.
Listen to the full episode on primemediaplus.com. Polytricking with Sidi Madia on EWN. In touch, in tune, and independent.
Winter is here, and so are the season's hottest deals. Whether you are powering through early mornings or cozying up on cold nights, Take-A-Lot is your one-stop winter shop for heaters, appliances, winter skincare, and everyday essentials. Shop now, stay warm, and make winter your season with Take-A-Lot. Nedbank Business Ignite on 702 is looking for a small business owner that talks a big game and delivers even bigger results. So if you're a small business that consistently dares to innovate, expand, and better your bottom line, you could walk away with 200,000 Rand cash and a 200,000 Rand advertising package. So enter on igniteyourbusiness.co.za. Then every day this week from 6 a.m., catch 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bimo to find out if you're a finalist in the Nedbank Business Ignite on 702. T's and C's apply. Nedbank, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Your voice,
your station,
your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
8 minutes before 10 o'clock. Papla, you're calling from Easteras. What are your thoughts on the minister's suggestion? Good morning.
Morning, Clement. You know, Clement, I nearly dropped the phone because what Judge Cameron said summed up 100% how I feel about the situation. I really have nothing to add. But what I wanted to say, just from my own perspective, you know, Clement, as a youngster, you know, we were also naughty. I also had run out of the law. I was also arrested and stuff. And I could see that how dangerous it can be by being locked up in a cell with other guys and people that you don't know. You know, like you said, the sexual crimes can just so easily be. And then what will that trauma be? You've still stolen a chocolate now. Now you've been locked up, and now there you get raped. Now we have to deal with all those things. Your social situation, why you steal the chocolate. Now we have to do the why you were raped. How do you deal with being raped as a boy, as a young man? So the minister and what Judge Cameron said, you know, he just wants us maybe to think something else. You know, like I remember when we were very young, there were things of lashes, and I think it scared us that the fact that you will get lashes, you know, and the thing gets over quickly. You get arrested on a Friday, maybe next week Monday you get your lashes, and the thing is over. Not being locked up without bail for long periods and have a criminal record and can't find a job again. So all those things is what the minister wants us to think and talk about.
All right. Papla in Easteras, thank you for your thoughts. Tsepo, let's start first with Elmon in Pretoria. Elmon, hi.
Hello, Mr. Clement. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that I agree with the minister to say the corporal punishment should come back, because for me, I think that is the only solution that will actually keep people out of prison. And I also want to agree with one of the listeners who came to say we need to make it difficult to commit crime by making sure that people that are in prison do not really enjoy the luxury of being in prison. Thank you.
Right, Elmon, Tsepo in Tembisa, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Sure.
Good. Personally, I blame our government for giving prisoners human rights. You know, once you do crime, you know that is wrong. By the time you get arrested, you forfeited your human rights when you got arrested. Because Clement Manyathela is working very hard, and then he buys his car. Tsepo comes and takes it, and Tsepo, after gets arrested, get behind bars and live a lavish lifestyle. He can go to school, go to him. We have people universities, which means those kids must look at.
Oh, Tsapo, I'm sorry, man. The line is bad there, but I think we got the point. You're worried about just people going to prisons and living lavish lifestyles there. Unfortunately, your line is breaking there. Let's wrap up with these WhatsApp voice notes.
Clement Mpo here. Why do we always have to raise issues as South Africans? This burden is just so much for South Africans, not only for the government, but for South African citizens. Surely these neighboring countries, they also need to take responsibility. And what is our government doing to confront them and say, these are the issues that we are facing. Our prisons are full. Illegal immigrants are roaming our streets. What are they doing to make sure that their citizens, neighboring countries, their citizens take responsibility, their governments take responsibility as well? Because surely this is not sustainable for us. It is not sustainable, Clement. It's just not sustainable. We're talking about it today. I can tell you now, in 10, 15 years' time, this thing will become something else. Mpo here.
Good morning, Clement. With regard to sending these guys after transgressing on our laws, an argument might arise from their country, which says, you guys with your lenient constitution allow these people to do all sorts of crimes, and when now they have to pay for it, then you bring them to us. Make sure that your laws are restrictive in a way that would deter them from doing all sorts of crimes, so that they don't commit crime and now have to be sent to us for imprisonment.
Morning, Clement. Yeah, no, it's nice to be politically correct. As much as Mr. Groenewald is wrong to suggest such, but those who are living in the townships, more importantly in the informal settlement, they go through this every day. People are being killed, people are being maimed by communities who take the law into their own hands. And in the townships, it's very easy for you to be given a life sentence by people who just shoot you for nothing. And nothing is happening. No one is saying anything. But when such things are brought to light, then we become politically correct, and then we want to criticize such things when the communities around our country are living under such conditions more severely than what Mr. Groenewald is suggesting. Thank you.
702 delivers
on the matters that matter to you.
My name is Papla from Easters. I listen to Clement, Mandy, and Stephen. And 702 is my source of information. And I just love listening to it. I've been listening to 702 for many, many, many years. And I'm looking forward to listen to many, many more to come. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
so we can deliver more on what matters to you.
702 listens.
Let's walk the talk.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
With 50% off on limited Tennis Town tickets, no wonder Amex card members are so thrilled. Enjoy a world-class tennis experience at Monte Casino between 11 and 13 July 2025. Buy your tickets for Amex Tennis Town online today at howler.co.za for the Championships Wimbledon experience with the Mzansi advantage. Tennis is better with Amex.
Walk with purpose, work with proud, walk the talk with 702 this July, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane. 702 Walk the Talk hits the streets on Sunday, the 27th of July. And this year we're walking loud, proud, and full of Mzansi magic. Expect the djembe drums, the brass bands, dancers, stilt walkers, even surprise appearances by Zola and Ishmael along the way, thanks to Made in Mzansi. Choose your distance from the strong 8 kilometer, the 6.7 kilometer for Mandela Month, or you can choose the gentle, family-friendly 4 kilometer stroll. Entries are 360 Rand for adults, 200 Rand for kids under 12. Register now on primemediaplus.com. Let's walk with memory, with music, and with meaning. The 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. Clashes have broken out between police and motorists in Roodepoort as Gauteng law enforcement officers intensify stop and search operations under the banner of Operation Shanela. Officers stopped cars, delivery bikes and taxis this morning, with one driver refusing to produce an identity document claiming it violated his rights, while others complied without incident. The weekday-long operation led by Acting Provincial Commissioner Mbuso Khumalo aims to stamp the state's authority and bring down crime in the area. We cross now live to Mongezi Koko in Roodepoort. Mongezi, take us through what happened this morning.
Well, Sfiso, the Roodepoort police station became the staging ground for this latest crime-fighting push, with police, JMPD, Home Affairs officials and even local clergies joining the briefing. Multidisciplinary teams span out throughout the area, pulling over vehicles, checking licenses and verifying identities, an effort police say is necessary to root out illegal activity. Now, last week alone, similar operations netted over 80 arrests for drunk driving in Gauteng. Today, tensions boiled over, with some resisting police demands. As we saw, the operation continued unabated, with officers vowing to keep the pressure on. Monkey Zikoko. Eyewitness News, reporting live in Roodepoort.
The Johannesburg City Council is set to elect a new speaker following the recent removal of Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu. She was fired through an Al-Jama motion of no confidence last week. Although her removal marks the end of the ANC's partnership with Action SA in Johannesburg, both parties say they will continue to work together in other municipalities. Alfara Mushwana reports.
Eyewitness News understands that the next speaker of the Johannesburg City Council is expected to come from a minority political party. Smaller parties have been pushing for greater representation in senior council roles, especially since the ANC already holds the position of mayor and council whip. Action SA has been completely excluded from consideration after it refused to support Mayor Tata Morero in last week's no-confidence vote. Over the past 3 years, the city has had 4 different speakers, each from a different political party, and the one elected today will become the 5th. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
In the capital, there are growing calls from law enforcement agents to change the culture of corruption in the city. This comes after 3 municipal workers were arrested for stealing a transformer worth 7 million rand from the Lodium substation. The trio appeared in the Atteridgeville Magistrates Court yesterday, facing theft charges of essential infrastructure. Community Safety MMC Hans Kutsia says it cannot be business as usual when officials commit crime.
Cannot allow this behavior. We need to have a culture change within the city of Tshwane, and once again we need to make this a city of excellence so that we can serve our residents with dignity and with integrity. Thank you.
The NPA says it could take its bid to bring former Free State Premier Ace Magashule's ex-assistant Muradi Cholota to the Constitutional Court. This is part of the state's plan to revive its corruption case against Cholota after suffering a legal blow at the Bloemfontein High Court last month. Cholota walked free on a technicality after the court ruled that her extradition from the US was unlawful and unconstitutional. Nogokayam Dambo reports.
The state's first attempt to challenge the judgment failed when the Bloemfontein High Court dismissed an application for leave to appeal. The NPA has now announced plans to take its petition to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The NPA says it believes Judge Philip Loubser erred in dismissing the application for leave to appeal and that there are reasonable prospects of success to appeal at the SCA. Given the possible far-reaching implications on many other extradition matters, the NPA says it's also exploring the possibility of approaching the Apex Court challenging the same judgment. The state believes Cholota is a key figure in the asbestos case and in holding her former boss Ace Magashule to account for the scam. Nogukanya Mdambo, Eyewitness News.
And the Colombian Navy says it has seized an unmanned submarine equipped with a Starlink antenna off its Caribbean coast. The vessel was not carrying drugs, but the Navy believes it was a trial run by a cocaine trafficking cartel. Manned semi-submersibles built in clandestine jungle shipyards have been used for decades to ferry cocaine north from Colombia. But in recent years, they have been sailing much further afield, crossing the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The latest find is the first reported discovery in South American waters of a drone narco submarine. Gold is trading at $3,353.41 an ounce. The rand is at 17.51 to the dollar, 23.93 to the pound, 20.67 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $68.62 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the N3 North. This is just as you approach the Kiludi's interchange. While heading towards the Kiludi's turnoff, we've got delays on the N12 West as well as the R24 West. This is due to an accident, and the delays are as you come out of the Inver Road exit. Please.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 18 and 19 degrees. The top story in EWM this hour. Clashes have broken out between police and motorists in Roodepoort as Gauteng authorities intensify stop and search operations under the banner of Operation Chanela.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
702 listens.
We are listening to you. You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702 and for your varied opinions about this suggestion that the Minister of Correctional Services has made. And I like that because that's what he wants also ultimately. He says, let's open up the conversation. Yes, you may disagree with me about the suggestion I'm making about corporal punishment, but we need to think out of the box. How do we deal with overcrowding in our prisons? And the debate is now open. I think, in fact, in Parliament, Mahashule Ghana spoke from Rise Mzansi as well. Yeah, Abel, I think he spoke about it. Can we play that? Because I think he spoke yesterday responding to the suggestion by the Minister of Correctional Services. So we've opened up the debate. I think there are many ideas people are coming up with. And I think that's going to lead us to some kind of a solution so that we deal with what is really has become a crisis in our prisons.
We need to be innovative, Minister. It's not corporal punishment that we need. It's community service. There are many people that are housed in correctional facilities that shouldn't be there. And we have said this before to say, let's send them back to work in communities for free. Let's not reintroduce corporal punishment, but let's make them pay for their crimes. Let them clean the streets, let them clean the graveyards so that they pay for the crimes that they've committed against the communities. That's our proposal and not returning to corporal punishment. That's
Mahashule Ghana there speaking in Parliament. So no doubt this debate will continue. Remember at 11 o'clock, we're going to do our Thursday dialogue. And today I really want us to zone in on this scourge of youth online gambling. It's getting out of control. Our kids as young as 14 are getting addicted to sports betting, and we need to try and find ways to stop this before it gets worse. So that's a chat coming up at 11 o'clock. But right now, we start with our Hanging Out feature.
Hanging Out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
And today, I'm hanging out with Bonang Mohale. He is a respected businessman. He's an activist. I said to you earlier, I think of him as the embodiment of integrity and justice. And I'm glad that he is with us in studio today as we get to know him better this hour. Mr. Mohale, thank you so much for coming through. Good morning.
Lekai. Hamunati Papa Lona.
Regona. You know, I don't see you running anymore in the area. I used to see you a lot in the morning, and sometimes I don't greet because I don't want to interrupt you, because I know as runners, especially when you're chasing time, you don't want to be stopped constantly. Someone hooting at you wants to say hi. Are you still a big runner? Okay, winter.
So first, you must stop me anytime because I'm not chasing time.
Okay.
I'm running only because, when I was young, I absolutely understood that there are a number of things to being a good leader. One of them is eating healthily. Second is sleeping adequately. Thirdly is simply exercising regularly.
Yeah.
So I do it for my heart and not for show.
Yeah.
So stop me anytime and let's have a conversation because
I'll hoot
I just
and
love
stop.
just the way your mind works.
Okay. So eating healthy, I still struggle a lot with that. That's been one of my New Year's resolutions, but we're still working on it. Did you master it from the beginning? Do you have a support system, or it's something you go in and out of?
No, in fact, it came to me late.
Yeah.
But remember, I was absolutely blessed because I got married at 17. So I've always had support.
Baton.
And I had kids almost immediately thereafter. So
Yeah.
I credit Bonang Mohale, Susan,
Yeah.
Mufuma Hadi, wa kgomotsa ntate.
Eh.
Ke ena ka nnete a nkentse motho. So
Yeah.
she's passionate about cooking. She's passionate about hosting, especially family, and then some family friends.
Yeah.
So you've got no option when you've got a boss at home.
Yes.
But to eat healthily.
That's great. That's great. Married at 17? Did you even know what marriage is?
No, of course not. So today I look
Yeah.
Susan in the centerpiece of the pupils of her eye and say, but what were you smoking?
Yeah.
When a 17-year-old boy said, would you marry me? And you said yes. And she laughs her lungs out. But all I know is that I loved her.
Yeah.
And now later on, I'm a good Catholic boy.
Yeah.
I also know that love conquers all.
Mm.
So the 24th of August, next month, we'll be happily married for 44 glorious years.
44 years. That is incredible. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons for some of us who are still to be married? And we want to be married for that long. What are the tips? What's worked for you that sustained you guys like to this point?
So this is one of those areas where we don't have many manuals. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew one thing and one thing only, that I'm at my happiest when I'm with her. And that hasn't changed. Even today, I know that I'm happiest when I'm at home. Sometimes I would go and have a meeting with the president of the country. That starts at 7 and it would scheduled to finish at 9. Sometimes they finish at 11. And at about 8:20, if I've got time, I go out as if I'm going to the loo and shoop, I go home. And Susan says, but we're not expecting you. And I say, no, but I would rather be here at home. So she's still surprised that if I have a choice, I would always choose being at home than anything else.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. So you grew up in Etwatwa?
Born in the old township of Etwatwa.
Yeah.
That municipality is called Binoni.
Yes.
Today is the modern day Rainsworth, because then they rebuilt Etwatwa across the railway line. Initially we lived like Sophia Town. Chinese, black, white, male, female, because there was no separate development. There was no Group Areas Act. And I'm one of those who is a victim of forced removals. And I thank it for having shaped who I am today.
How did it shape you?
You know, it's called the duality of life. Is it possible that when you go through trauma, like I did and lost my father at 17, instead of being angry, bitter, and twisted, to say it's precisely that made me focus and study on Saturday, and therefore went to medical school and ended up being on the pinnacle of business. Because maybe, just maybe, had that not happened, so is it possible that sometimes when you are fired at work and then you look back and say, it was that firing that made me to focus, pull myself towards myself, and then I became a better quality human being. So I always say, if tragedy comes, I look at it instead of condemning it and crying, and I ask myself, what is this being brought to teach me. I might not get it now, not in 3 days. Sometimes it's 3 years later.
What a way to look at trauma or tragedy, because I think as human beings, we have been socialized to think life is about just joy also and happiness. So that's why we still struggle with moments of sadness, and we get concerned quickly that, oh, I'm depressed, or oh my goodness, my life is falling apart, because we're so accustomed to this idea that we have to be joyful all the time and happy. We don't think that life actually includes so many elements. You're happy, you're sad, it includes different seasons. But I love that in hindsight, we must learn to look back and say, actually, because of that, I took this route and here I am today. So had it not been for that, I probably wouldn't be here.
And that's what our forebears were teaching us. I was brought up by my grandmother. And now we use English expressions for it. We even have a language for it. That every cloud, because it's dark and grey and miserable, has a silver lining. But our parents used to tell us that it is the sun that gives the moon its purpose. You'd never appreciate the light that you can see until and unless you have experienced darkness. So for you to really be immersed in true joy, you should at some stage have gone through sadness and some pain.
Yes.
So if you don't look at the yin and the yang, as the Japanese call it, you might just miss the moment. And if you don't see meaning and purpose in the challenges, you might miss the mark.
Yeah. You wanted to be a doctor at some point. And
Yes.
then things changed. What happened?
I saw the light. So I grew up in Katlehong because when I was about 6, the whole family moved to Katlehong. Opened my eyes, I was already there. So when I passed matric, they call it grade 12 today, we were pupils. They call them learners today. I looked around and said, look, I'm left with my mother only. I want to do the type of course that will give me the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. So I looked around Katlehong Township, the people who drove the biggest cars, Jaguar, S-Type, V8, double petrol tank, were clinicians, doctors, were lawyers. And the people who lived in the biggest houses, those were the ones. I said, that's what I want. I want to be a doctor. And I didn't want to go to a black medical school. Most of the people I knew went to the University of Natal, Wentworth black section. And then the apartheid government built a unique and exclusive medical school only for black people called the Medical University of Southern Africa, or Medunsa. Even that early on, I genuinely believed that I'm as good as the best. And I wanted to compete with people who thought they were superior to us. So I wanted to go to a white university. So I applied to Wits, I applied to UCT.
Didn't you need approval at Wits, like from the highest level?
In fact, I did. So I applied, I went to pre-university in January. We needed what was called special ministerial consent from the Minister of Interior. And mine only came in April. At that time at Wits, they would load your meals and your library access on your access card. So when mine came in April, it meant that the first 2-3 months of the year, I couldn't go to the canteen. In fact, I couldn't borrow books from the library. 27 of us applied. The minister came back and said 11 are approved. I looked at the ones that were not approved. They had better grades, cleverer, much more hardworking than us. In hindsight, that framed, described, and shaped my sense of social justice.
And then when did you then decide, this is not going to work for me? I want to get into business.
So 2 things happened. So first, I heard an African man being interviewed on radio. I nearly called it by name. I forgot it's a competition. And I was driving to Witbank. And I later got to understand that he's the late Maduke Lottenloof, who was the MD of the Black Management Forum. I listened to this black man who was confident, who was articulate, but also who understood the things that kept us awake at night. So I wanted to be a manager. I just spent 4 years at Wits Medical School. And I thought, you know what? The second thing that came to me, I said, as a GP, I'd probably have an impact with probably one patient at a time. But imagine if I was supervisor of 8 people. Then I can talk to 8 people at the same time. I really just wanted to have massified impact. So I chose to go to business. And I wanted eventually to be a supervisor. And guess what? Many years later, I probably ran 5 companies, not South African companies, but some of the biggest multinationals in this country.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want us to play some of your favorite songs in between our chats. Remember, I'll take your calls as well on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps as well if you want to join this chat. Maybe you've got a question for Mr. Mohale. You've got some input. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. I love your playlist because, I mean, you've got Zonke there. You've got Amanda Black, who's amazing. Got Brenda Mtambo. I love Brenda Mtambo. So, Nati, 4 of the artists you actually have here are also my favorite artists. Shall we start with Zonke Dikana? Why is this your favorite song? Uyandi Tanda.
Yeah. So first, because I think life is shaped by love.
Yeah.
And to say I love somebody is to see yourself in another. So if I see myself in you, I would wish only the best for you. Because if I go out of my way to palette, highlight, and celebrate you, I'm celebrating myself. Which means I can never think of harming or hurting you. And again, that's how we were brought up. And it takes me back to love conquers all. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have resources. Because even in a shack, when you leave somebody and you love somebody, you will have joy. Today, it's very sad because we define ourselves by having things, bricks and mortar, a piece of metal, a car. And yet, when you ask your kids what was the best time you've ever had, they will probably relate the time you as a parent came to their first performance at school, or when you as a family went on a picnic at Zoo Lake and they could hear the sound of water, but also they could hear the grass sucking on the morning dew. So we have forgotten to focus on things that genuinely matter. Today we are chasing shadows.
Yeah. Well, here's Zonke Dikana reminding us of the importance of love.
Cute is your name, yeah. And I don't care what they say. On time every day, every day. They're gonna come to joke, I'm not every day. Ooh, every day, every day.
Oh, Zonke, have you seen her live?
Absolutely. I love live shows because, you know, this is best said in Sesotho. It's like taking a vow. It takes you to a place we have never been. I've seen people who can't talk, but they can sing. I saw Lerato Mulapo, we call her Lira, when she was going through most. And she couldn't speak and she had to learn, but she could sing. So there's some magic that happens when you sing because you deeply and profoundly connect. Even some of us, you play Bill Withers.
Yeah.
And Barry White.
Usha.
And you say, he will say the words, when our
Yes. Yeah. What's the answer? The song has already articulated.
Exactly.
Yeah, what's the answer? Yeah. Okay, let's go to some WhatsApp voice notes on 0727021702.
Hey, Prof. Bonang Mohale. Nice to hear from you. I don't see you running around Olive Day lately. So I don't know, maybe you chose a different route, but yeah, I used to see you and drive around you. So Lift As You Rise, you signed it. I think we were at the JSE. It's dated 2021. I'm looking at it. And I didn't say to you, when I stopped you, I said, you need to sign the Behold the Turtle. So, Koba, next time, Homatamo Olive Dale, and I see you, I'm going to stop you, which I know runners don't like. I'm going to stop you for you to sign this book, Behold the Turtle. Lift As You Rise, you signed it for me at the JSE. Thank you. Tato, ran back.
Wow, what a great interview. Well, I had lost hope in the kind of leadership we have in the country. Trailblazers, people creating amazing empires that some of us have been longing to achieve for the longest, and this has been just an eye-opener and a beautiful reminder of how to appreciate the good with the bad. Thank you so much.
Great show, Clement. Kasitu here. I met Ntate Bonang, I think it was 2011 or 2010. He was heading to Total, and we were taken there by Koleza Matigizela. She was a facility lecturer, and she took us as a class to go see Ntate Bonang, and he gave us words of wisdom. It was my final year, and to this day I still hold those words that he had told us as youngsters. And I met him again, I think 3 years thereafter, at ITC. He was a spokesperson, one of the spokesperson for IDC, I think, for small business chamber in Orlando. But no, great show. Thanks, Clement.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much for those. So Utsibe, next time you run, get ready to sign the book. Okay.
I will run with a pen, absolutely. And I'm still running.
Yeah.
So I used to run in the morning.
Yes.
So now I wait until the sun comes up a little bit. Because if it's dark, sometimes that's why I never run with a watch or even with a cell phone, because South Africa has become a dangerous place.
It has. Oh, but as you said, you don't run for time. Just an exercise for you. All right, it's 10:30. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. We'll come back and continue this chat with Professor Bonang Mohale. I'll continue taking your calls as well. and your WhatsApps. Fiso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Police and motorists have clashed in Roodepoort during a stop and search operation. Officers stopped cars, delivery bikes and taxis this morning, but one driver refused to produce his ID, claiming it violated his rights. Acting Provincial Commissioner Mbuso Khumalo is leading Operation Shanela, which aims to bring down crime in the area. The Roodepoort Magistrates Court has heard that the arrest of a man accused of killing a 14-year-old teenager was based on one eyewitness account. This was raised by Mduduzi Mnisi's legal team yesterday during his bail hearing application. Mnisi was arrested in connection with the death of Likona Fose. And South Korea's president says his administration is doing its utmost to secure a trade deal with the US ahead of President Donald Trump's deadline next week for imposing fresh country-specific levies. Already hit by sector levies on steel and car exports, Seoul is laser-focused on negotiations over a 25% country-specific tariff that has been suspended until next week. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Travelling on the N12 West towards the Bedfordview area, we've got delays between the Inver Road exit and the Gilulis interchange. While travelling on the R59 North, roadworks are taking place in the Mayorsdale area. They're right near the Reading interchange. Delays from Nelson Mandela Avenue. More roadworks are taking place on the N1 North. That's between the Randburg area and Sharon Lee. So please be on the lookout there and approach with care. If you're traveling in the Protea Glen area, there are some delays on the N12 both directions between Clip Refuge Drive and the R558. If you know exactly what's happening there, please do remember to share those reports with us. We're on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
When life changes, so should your savings plan. And when your goals evolve, your advice should evolve with them. With Momentum, advice meets your context. Catch 702 in conversation with Momentum on The Money Show next Wednesday, 9 July, as we unpack why context matters in financial advice. Discover how you can get the right support on your savings and investment journey, tailored to where you are and where you're going. That's 702 in conversation with Momentum next Wednesday on The Money Show with Stephen Grootes. Momentum, your journey to success on 702. Momentum is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
If you want to know about the heart and art of jazz, look no further than the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival, a grand ensemble of over 50 world-class acts across 4 stages for 3 whole days. That's right, from the 26th, 27th and 28th of September. The Santon Convention Center will be demure and sophisticated as the fine Standard Bank Joy of Jazz 2025 takes you deep into the heart, the art and splendor of jazz. Take me there. Book your seat via Ticketmaster now.
Kickstart your small business with a starter bundle from Nedbank. Enjoy free transactions for 6 months, including free cash deposits and withdrawals and a free debit card with easy digital access and a dedicated banker to guide you along every step of the way. Open a Nedbank starter bundle with SA's best bank for SMEs. Apply on the Money app today. Nedbank. See money differently. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Some walks are just for exercise, others for leisure. But this walk is for something greater.
It's team building.
This July, you won't just take a step, you'll take a stand. You'll walk through history. You'll walk with it. On Sunday, 27 July, the 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, returns. It's a route that winds through the heart and soul of our capital city. From the sacred grounds of Freedom Park to the powerful steps of the Union buildings. Choose the 8 kilometer for those walking strong, the 6.7 kilometer in honor of Mandela Month, or the 4 kilometer for families and first-timers. Entries are 360 Rand for adults, 200 Rand for children under 12. Enter now on primemediaplus.com. 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, is where footsteps become footprints.
Hanging out with Clement
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
25 minutes before 11 o'clock. What an inspirational chat with Professor Bonang Mohale. We're hanging out with him this hour. Someone just sent a WhatsApp message here. It's actually just gave me goosebumps. This person's name is Nobaye, and he says, "Hi Clement, I was a student at Wits University in 1986, and I remember bumping into Ntate Mohale when he was visiting his lovely wife Susan at Babato Hall." Was
Banato.
it Banato?
Yes.
Banato Hall. Their union is so inspiring. Nobody do me laurelete can go Wits. Back door.
So because we had Group Areas Act at that time, as medical students at Wits, we couldn't sleep in town in Braamfontein or in Parktown. So they found a place for us inside the modern day Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. And it was called Glen Thomas House. So it was the only mixed residence in the whole of the Wits University. So when we finally moved, my lovely wife, because 1981, I was already married. So 3 years later, when she came to join me at Wits to do BA social work, the very first group to do the 4-year degree, because up until then it was 3 years, they then moved us to Banato Hall, which was on the west side of the campus, where they used to hold the Rent Easter show. And in that Banato Hall, they allowed us to live as mixed residents for the first time in town. We bought a fridge and we used to go and buy our own groceries. So, of course, I lived with my lovely wife.
Let's go to some calls now. Tanki, you're calling us from Joburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. How are you?
Sure, man. Go ahead.
Kitaki, you will know me very well. He used to be my boss at BLSA.
Okay.
So you are sitting with library there, Clement. His knowledge is unmatched, and what a boss! I spent some time with him, and I was quick to realize that his joy comes from empowering and seeing people happy. I think in this world we just need half of Ntate Mohale, 4 people, 5 or 4, half of Ntate Mohale. We don't even need full. He's just someone else. I enjoyed working with him, and everyone who worked with Ntate Mohale will attest to this because of that. You will learn a lot. He will empower you, and deliberately so. When he lives there, I can tell you, you will never be the same, Clement.
Yeah.
But last time when I speak about Mebusi, you said I was bribed to say this. So he's no longer my boss, Ntate Mohale. So no one bribed me, right?
He didn't pay you any money to say these kind words. Taki, thank you so much for calling. What is it about empowering? Because, Taki says that's the thing about you is there's nothing that gives you more joy than seeing people happy and empowering them. Where do you think that comes from? Who instilled that in you?
So 2 things. Takalani was a driver of the previous CEOs of Business Leadership South Africa. I come in, he's my driver. But I found that each time we were moving from point A to point B, he would talk to me about business. So I said to him, but what are you passionate about? He says, I've done 2 years of ICT, but I've also done 2 years of project management. I said to him, from today, you must go home and ubuele mmeko lapeng and decide, the 2 of you, what you are really passionate about. And you choose one so that you go and complete it, and I'll pay for it. He chose ICT, and with immediate effect, we made him an ICT manager. And I said to him, the job of finding me a driver, it's yours. The second thing is, but I told you that I'm a good Catholic boy. Because even the Bible says those who are helping others are completing God's work. It's only in giving that it comes back to you tenfold. Anybody that is in love knows that love is not self, but the other-centered. When you please the other person, it comes back to you tenfold.
Let's go to Moletsani in Centurion. Moletsani, hi.
Yes, hi Clement.
Sure.
You've got one of my favorite people in the studio. That the Bonang Mohale. What a guy, Clement. He used to be an MD at Otis back in the days. A friend of mine worked there. He used to speak so highly of him. Very strict, yes. But he used to speak so highly of Ntate Bonang. Every time I listen to him, I've read his book, Lift as you rise. You know, he's such a gentleman. You know, you can't help but listen. I can listen to Tate Mohale all day. Tate Mohale, labu asisu to Clement, no matter his thoughts, you can relate to him. Clement, we need more of Tate Mohale. Say, I'm so emotional now just listening to him. I just like the guy, Clement. You know, never had a father growing up. So listening to him, and I can relate to him. You know, what a guy. With all his achievements, Clement, so humble and so down to earth.
Yeah.
And you know,
he inspires us to then also do that. And Barilenka Mama Winnie, she multiplies. So let's let Tate Mohale as well multiply in us, so that we can continue the work that he does. So what else are you passionate about? So we've established that you love exercising, you love running. You did love photography at some point.
I studied photography.
Yeah?
In fact, ke chelete photography e ntseng ke kgone ho patala mahadi.
Oh.
So my very first camera was called a Halina 1000.
Yeah.
I was in standard 4 because since standard 3, my parents stopped buying me a pair of socks. I bought everything myself. When I was in standard 6, I had a bicycle that I went and bought from Ellerins, furnishers. But when I went to Form 1, I had 5 cameras. My ideal camera was called Nikon F1. I remember I paid 13,800 just for the body. In those days, you used to have the Bantu World and the at that time, I think it was the Sowetan, and they would publish the price of cars as an insert. I looked on those inserts, and the price of a BMW 318i was 3,500. It was cheaper than my Nikon F1. At that time, it dawned on me that I'm not as poor as I thought. So, of course, because I took photographs, I used to take my camera with me, even when I went to high school. So Akunka Snap, you give me 50 cents. It covered all the costs. I would go and process it. I would come back. If I give you a photograph, you'll then give me the 50 cents. How Snayona, I keep the photograph. That was a way of bookkeeping. Because the photographs I had, I knew that weekend I had to go and give it to you. But really the lesson that it taught me is that you can save some money, because at that time, never file a box, go the South African post office. And then you'd buy 5-cent stamps, lick them and post them on this. High trades, you give it to them. It was R1. They give you a book, they write by hand, by tempe, and then they would sign. I had 2 full books from the post office from just doing that. I ended up selling oranges and apples. That's why at 17, Susan, empty-handed. I said to them, so what would be decent? They said 10,000 rand.
She on 10,000.
And I gave it to them.
At 17.
At 17.
Wow. You also love traveling?
Hugely.
Yeah. How many countries have you been to now?
I've stopped counting when I turned 40 because I'd been to 100 countries. But it's easy because, remember, at that time, Africa consisted of 53 countries. Now there's 55. I include Western Sahara. But also because I've always been a senior manager looking after Africa.
So you
at
should travel
Otis
a lot.
Elevators in 1996, I looked after 33 countries.
Yeah.
The first 3 years I reported to Madrid. The last 2 I reported to Paris. So I would go there every quarter. So when I joined South African Airways, my portfolio was the executive vice president. I looked after global sales. I looked after strategic alliances, but also I looked after network management. So most of the routes to Sao Paulo, etc., the first one I would fly there.
Yeah.
It used to take us 2 sleeps to go to Australia, and I signed the first deal. It was called a commercial and code-share agreement with Qantas that allowed New Zealand to be 1 sleep away. So the first flight, I would take it myself to experience it, because I realized that at that time we had 11,500 employees at South African Airways. Half of them were selling first-class tickets and business class tickets that never been in business class. So I introduced a concept where we have the employee of the month, and the price was you could fly anywhere else in the world on business class, and the company would pay for it. Because if you sell what you have seen, you can sell it with conviction. But if you sell it only on theory, then it is just that smoke.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So, do you have a specific country that's your favorite? That remains your favorite city in the world?
The island of Zanzibar, as part of Tanzania, because that's where our history comes from. That's where the slaves used to have the point of no return. But also, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. It reminds you that Africa is God's own country, blue skies, African sunshine. The other one that I love is Malawi because of the warmth of the people. No wonder it's called the warm heart of Africa. I could not conceptualize that you can have a lake that is 365 kilometers long and 52 kilometers wide. It's a lake, but it would have the same waves as the ocean. And I used to stay at a place called Corporal Inn, Mount Socha Hotel, Lilongo Hotel. Even today, when I think of where to take my children to, instead of going to New York and Paris, and they do take me there, because both of them, their postgraduate degrees, they got outside. I always prefer to take them to Africa. But one of my best places is to go to the Kruger National Park, which is bigger than the country Israel, bigger than the country Belgium, at 2 million square kilometers. Really, we're gifted in this country. If anybody looks at us and think we are poor, they are smoking something.
I always tell people, make sure you do go to Zanzibar, visit Stone Town. Because one of the things that have really shifted me was visiting Stone Town and learning about slaves and going to the churches and how those were used as a hub for that slave trade. It's a difficult story, very emotional, painful, but it does something to you. It teaches you something about our resilience as black people. It's 13 minutes now before 11 o'clock. Let's take a quick ad break. We're going to come back with some more calls and WhatsApps as we wrap up our chat with Ntate Mohale.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
Kabazela wants to know if you've got fruit trees in your yard accessible to passers-by. Have you had scenarios in which people come to your tree with their little plastic bags to try and grab the fruit?
Or sometimes they come into the yard, they knock on the door and they say, please can I have a bag to pick the pears? You need to, I must give you the bag.
Amo's house, not only will you get pomegranates and pears, we'll get in an extra bit of rosemary.
While stocks last. Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
Dear Journal, day 4602 of trying to be an adult. My doctor asked me how my quality of rest is at the moment. I told him I have 2 problems. I struggle to sleep at night, but I also struggle to awake at day.
Aggressively realizing your age? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's simple and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Hollywood Bets is bringing you a bounty of prizes with Spina Zonke prize drops. Gear up to unravel an endless supply of treasures and claim fantastic riches with a chance to win an amazing share of 2.5 million Rand in cash and prizes. All you have to do is bet 2 Rand or more on selected pragmatic play games on Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays between 12:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Feel the ultimate thrill when you log in for a spin and bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
On the next Money Show, Dr. Musa Malwandla, the Co-Chief Investment Officer of Differential Capital, and Mbasa Mkhwetyana, the Deputy Head of Research at Mazi Capital. They'll be your head teachers at Investment School. Then Lunqedo Mtwentwe, Managing Director, Advantage Advisory, with some big advice for small business owners. Also, tech feature with our tech expert, Siphumelele Zondi.
The Money Show.
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Curtis is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Bank, a leading Pan-African bank and proud sponsor of the African Blockchain Report 2024. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Hanging out with Clement.
On 702.
Let's walk the talk.
It's 10 minutes now before 11 o'clock.
Morning, Clement. This is Mamiki Sibego. Muchom interview today is my brother. He's married to my sister, Susan, and he's the pillar of the family. A very generous man, a very humble man. Yeah, a gentleman. Ntate Mohale, ra leboha ha ntse o re hlokometse as a family, and also o ntse e le hore o hlokometse le setjhaba. Re ithutile tse ngata ka wena ntate. Thank you very much, Clement.
Thank you. That's amazing. It's good to know because sometimes people are ba tlhokometse setjhaba mara ba tlhokomela hae. So it's great to see that there's that, the appreciation. They still have you as Ntate Mohale, and we can still have you as Ntate Mohale. What do you think about, speaking of setjhaba, what do you think about where we are now? Do you still have hope? There's someone who sent a voice note earlier saying, he was losing hope in the leadership, and when he listens to you, he gets some hope. Where do you think we are now as a country, where we find ourselves?
So before the country, charity like clarity begins at home. Our parents didn't have policies. They had 7, 10 kids because their prayer was at least one of them, if they make it, that will be my insurance. That's why as Africans, we don't take our parents to old age homes. We look after them as a way of paying back the love, the tenderness, and the care they've given us. So looking after your own parents, it's a privilege, not an opportunity to shine. That's the least that you can do. Because even religion says, how can you love Jesus that you don't know, you've never seen, when you can't even look after your own mother? Today we speak to caskets when they're gone. Secondly, about the country as a people with great natural endowments, Professor J. Edwards Chamberlain is an emeritus professor of English and comparative literature at Toronto University. His first book's title talks to me to this question. It says, if this is your land, where are your stories? What are your whispers? 31 years into democracy, what are we going to tell our children? Now we are in a coalition with our colonizers, oppressors, and racists. In business, we have values. It helps you to make decisions under the most difficult times. In this country, we are guided by 3 things. One is the supremacy of the Constitution. The second is respect for the rule of law. Lastly, is to have a foreign policy that governs how you engage, interact, and interface with other countries. When you bring in the DA, whose purpose is to reverse the gains that have already been made by African people, but also the people who are invested every hour in your own implosion. What were you thinking?
Where does that leave us, though? What do you think is the story we're going to tell 5 years after this first administration of GNU?
I pray that we will not be the first country to be free from colonialism in Africa, and we didn't exponentially increase our standard of education, because every single, solitary one of them did that. I mean, since when is 30% an acceptable mark? Secondly, that we are the only African country that became free from colonialism but did not increase the ownership of the economy by at least double digit. Even Gabriel Mugabe of Zimbabwe did that. Lastly, we don't want to be known as the only African country to be free from colonialism. After 30 years, we voluntarily gave power back to these colonizers, oppressors, and racists. Because you see, white people everywhere else in the world don't voluntarily give up privilege, because the duration of oppression, it's never determined by the oppressor. It's always determined by the oppressed. It's only when the oppressed says it's enough now that it stops.
What do you think are the options for this country? Because there's been 30 years of the ANC. Clearly, there are people that were not satisfied with how they've governed, and that's why they're now at 40%. There are people that have started parties like the former President Jacob Zuma, who really was one party that performed really successfully, if comparatively when you look at when it was established. So what are the options then for this country when you haven't had a party that got 60% of the majority? Who's best to work with who to advance the very interests that you speak of?
So first, there's no doubt that the ANC succumbed to greed. It's at the source of their punishment. It will be the reason why they've squandered a two-thirds majority on the 27th of April 1994 and a 73%, to be precise, 72.9% during Thabo Mbeki's period. They could have changed the constitution if they so wished. But this is where the answer comes from. It comes from the first ANC president to be the Nobel Peace Prize laureate. He says, you don't want even your fiercest enemy at their weakest to exclude you as an option. The last one comes from Chinua Achebe, who's an author and a poet. The late says, he is a fool, he who treats his own brother worse than a stranger. Because when two brothers fight to the death, a stranger will inherit your father's estate. He says, anger with your own brother, kith and kindred, should never be more than skin deep. It can be bone deep. And he says, when a brother has made a mistake, they need to be helped, not blamed.
Dr. Mohale, thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you so much for your lessons. Thank you for your inspiration. Every time I chat to you, I walk away much, much, much better and much more knowledgeable and inspired. We really appreciate you.
Bakwena Balebu.
It's 2 minutes before 11.
Get ready, South Africa. The 129th Hollywood Bets Durban July gallops into Hollywood Bets Greyville Racecourse on Saturday, 5th July. It's more than a race. It's the heartbeat of Mzansi. This year's theme, Marvels of Mzansi, celebrates our rich culture, vibrant heritage, and breathtaking beauty. From thrilling horse racing to show-stopping fashion and powerful performances by Zolani Mahola, Lira, Mafigi Zolo, and more. Feel the pulse of a nation in celebration. Tickets are flying fast. Secure yours now at Ticket Pro. The Hollywood Bets Durban July, Africa's greatest horse racing and social event.
Okay, truck 7, that has zero warning lights. Truck 8, it's just been serviced. I guess we're running like a well-oiled machine. Where would I be without MyWay's comprehensive cover for my vans and trucks? Plus, cover for my customers' orders with goods and transit insurance. I guess we'll never know.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. MyWay. Live your way.
Walk with purpose. Walk with pride. Walk the talk with 702 this July. Hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane. 702 Walk the Talk hits the streets on Sunday, the 27th of July. And this year, we're walking loud, proud, and full of Mzansi magic. Expect some djembe drums, some brass bands, dancers, stilt walkers, and even surprise appearances by Zola and Ishmael along the way. Thanks to Made in Mzansi. Choose your distance from the strong 8 kilometers, the 6.7 kilometer for Mandela Month, or you can choose the gentle, family-friendly 4-kilometer stroll. Entries are 360 Rand for adults, 200 Rand for kids under 12. So register now on primemediaplus.com. Let's walk with memory, with music, and with meaning. The 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The ANC-led coalition in the Johannesburg City Council has nominated the AIC's Margaret Arnolds to contest the vacant Speaker position. Arnolds, who currently serves as the city's finance MMC, previously held the role of Speaker before joining the mayoral committee. The council is set to elect a new Speaker today after Actions SA's Nobuhle Mthembu was ousted last week. Arnolds is expected to go up against DA's Alex Christians for the Speaker position. DA caucus leader Belinda Kaiser Echio-Zonjoku.
We are nominating Councillor Alex Christians. Councillor Christians is the former chair of chairs in the council, and we have full confidence that he's likely to also emerge. Obviously, as the DA, we've already resolved months ago that when a vacancy occurs, the DA will always field the candidate.
Motorists and police have clashed in Roodepoort during a stop-and-search operation. Officers stopped cars, delivery bikes and taxis this morning, but one driver refused to produce his ID, saying that action violates his rights. Acting Provincial Commissioner Mbuso Khumalo is leading Operation Chanela, which aims to bring down crime in the area. Mongezi Koko reports.
The Roodepoort police station became the staging ground for this latest crime-fighting push, with police, JMPD, Home Affairs officials and even local clergy joining the briefing. Multidisciplinary teams fan out throughout the area, pulling over vehicles, checking licenses and verifying identities, an effort police say is necessary to root out illegal activity. Tensions boiled over this morning, with some resisting police demands.
But if you want to talk at court. The way that we need to arrest you and verify. They know which most of the time, like we say, maybe most of the time.
Fine, you will identify him as not a problem.
But the operation continued unabated, with officers vowing to keep the pressure on. Mongezi Koko, Eyewitness News, Roodepoort.
The Roodepoort Magistrates Court has heard that the arrest of a man accused of killing a 14-year-old teenager was based on one eyewitness account. This was raised by Mduduzi Mnisi's legal team in court yesterday during his bail hearing application. Mnisi was arrested in connection with the death of Likona Forse. Forse's mutilated body was discovered not far from her home in Durban Deep a day after she was reported missing. Reports claim that Mnisi was the last person seen with the teenager before she vanished. Thando Ngcobo reports.
A lengthy back and forth in the bail hearing of the 39-year-old took place at the Roodepoort Magistrates Court yesterday. When the investigating officer was put on the stand to reveal his findings, Mduduzi Mnisi's defense attorney Kaya Khokong argued that he may have been prematurely arrested. This is how it played out.
Have you up to date managed to get any piece of evidence that links the accused to the commission of offense in your investigation?
No indication.
You are saying to the court again that no, it is not safe that the accused is granted bail because the community is angry outside. What I want to put to you is that you placed the accused in this position where the community is angry against you. What do you say about it?
It's not true, Worship.
The matter returns to court on the 9th of July for Mnisi's parole officer to take the witness stand. Thando Ngcobo, Eyewitness News.
And football star Diogo Jota has died in a car crash in Spain. Local media is reporting that the 28-year-old Liverpool player was with his brother at the time of the crash, who also died in the early hours of this morning. The Portuguese forward was part of the team that won the Premier League title last season and helped his country win the UEFA Nations League title last month. Gold is trading at $3,353.41 an ounce. The rand is at 17.51 to the dollar, 23.93 to the pound, 20.67 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $68.62 a barrel.
And in the traffic in Protea Glen, there's been an accident on the N12 West. It happened after Klip drivers causing massive queues between the Klip off-ramp and the R558, about a 20-minute hold-up there. If you are traveling in Sharonlee, we've got roadworks taking place on the N1 North, right at Malibongo Drive, and they are causing delays.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 18 and 19 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The ANC-led coalition in the Johannesburg City Council has nominated the AIC's Margaret Arnolds to contest the vacant speaker position.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. Some walks are just for exercise, others for leisure. But the 702 Walk the Talk is for something far greater. Enter now on primemediaplus.com.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Six minutes after 7 o'clock was a long time ago. It's 6 minutes after 11 o'clock now. This is the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. Time for our Thursday Dialogue.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's Walk the Talk on 702.
All right, so on our Thursday Dialogue today, we're looking at the scourge of youth online gambling. And if you're a parent out there, you need to listen up because I think this is quite concerning and may get worse. According to the National Gambling Board, gambling participation among young people in this country has been steadily increasing. And it's being driven largely by the ease of access to gambling platforms through mobile services. And it's this accessibility that's made it easier for minors to engage in gambling activities despite legal restrictions prohibiting anyone under the age of 18 from participating, right? Because young people, these are the people that are particularly vulnerable to the risks associated with gambling because, they lack maturity at that age and they've got limited financial literacy. And yet you've got many that still manage to find ways to gamble online. And I think that raises serious concerns about the effectiveness of current safeguards and just even generally enforcement measures. News 24 has been reporting this week that South African teens are becoming addicted to sports betting from as young as 14. So parents, what are we doing about this? We're told that most of these students are from private and former Model C schools. What are we doing about it? Are we being vigilant? Are we checking out if our children are buying things? Are we asking them where they're getting money from? This is a social ill, and I think we need to deal with the problem before it becomes a bigger crisis because online gambling companies are also beginning to target young people and not just your grant recipients and other vulnerable groups. So please let me know what your observation has been in as far as online gambling around young people is concerned. You can call us on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Benedict Wicks is a journalist with News 24 who's joining us on the line. I'm going to start with Benedict and then I'm going to bring in the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools because they've raised some concerns as well. I will bring in the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. I'll bring in the Democratic Alliance in Parliament as well because they've been trying to push some legislation that can help us deal with this crisis. Benedict, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. Hi, Benedict. Can you hear us? All right, let me put Benedict back to the producers. There's something clearly wrong with that line. But we're going to get Benedict. I just want her to lay the foundation for us because she's been working on this story at News 24, and I want us to understand from what she was able to gather, how big of a crisis is this, and what are the schools, the kind of schools that have been identified here, before I bring in the other stakeholders. Let's try that line again with Benedette. Benedette, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you
All right,
hear me?
perfect. We can hear you. So from your report, how prevalent is sport and online betting among teens? What have you gathered?
Well, incredibly prevalent. And it was, I must say, terribly surprising for me to find out that this was such a big trend. But we spoke to high school students and teenagers from around the country, schools in Gauteng, schools in the Eastern Cape, and they all spoke about this as though it's very commonplace. They told us this is a very popular trend, and that they've been doing it, many of them, in fact, with the permission of their parents. So it did emerge that it's very prevalent, and it's not just concentrated to one province. It seems to really be a nationwide thing that's happening at the moment.
So how early are these teens starting to use these platforms?
Well, when it comes to these platforms, the teens that we spoke to told us that from as young as 14, they've been using them. But we must also remember that when we talk about underage gambling, when we talk about illegal underage gambling, that there's a wide variety of different forms that it takes. So I think my understanding is what's happening is that, in fact, even younger, they're starting playing with things like dice and cards, and that's almost desensitizing them to it. And so when they get a little bit older and they have access to these online platforms, that's where they're going.
Sure. And parents, are they aware of this behavior?
Well, I certainly can't say all parents would be aware of it, and I'm sure there are many parents who, if they were aware of it, would be upset. But we did speak to a number of teens who, of course, you need an ID or an ID number at the very least to sign up for an account with these platforms. And what they told us is they either just use an older friend or older cousin or older siblings, or they use their parents, and that often they ask their parents permission. Can I use your ID for this purpose? And their moms and dads say, yes, that's fine. We spoke to one kid who said he had bought his mom a fridge with his winnings. So I think that what's happening actually is that parents are not necessarily viewing this as much of a problem as it can potentially be. Perhaps those who are finding that their children are doing this without their knowledge, they might think, oh, they're naughty, they need to be punished. But I think that there's kind of a lack of acknowledgement of just how addictive, just how dangerous this can be in the long run. And the fact that kids need help if they've been doing this for a prolonged period.
Yeah, my goodness, this is quite concerning. Benedette Wicks, thank you for making time for us. She is a journalist with News 24. I thought we should just begin with her to lay the foundation. She's been reporting this week on News 24 about this because she spoke to these young people, and it's quite a serious one. Have you seen this as a crisis, as a problem among your teens, in your community, in your schools? Teachers listening to us now, is this something you've picked up? And what do you think we can do to deal with it? 011-883-0702 is the number you can dial there. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Dr. Johan van der Merwe is the Deputy CEO at the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools, joining us via Zoom. Dr. van der Merwe, thank you for joining this chat. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to all of the listeners, and thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you. We also have Sibongile Simelani Kuntana, who is the Executive Director of the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. Sibongile, thanks for your time as well. Hi.
Hi, Clement. Good morning. Good morning to my panelists, and thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you. Lastly, we've got Toby Chance, the DA spokesperson on trade, industry, and competition. Toby, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, Clement.
Yeah, Dr. van der Merwe, what's the state of online gambling from what you've been able to gather as the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools? How prevalent is this really in schools?
Yes, well, I think it has become a growing concern. We've noted it amongst our FETSA's members. Gambling among learners is becoming a bigger problem because how easily it is accessible and how accessible it has become. In the past, you had to physically go to a casino or a betting shop, but today gambling is literally in our learners' pockets. With a smartphone and a little bit of data, we know that our learners can access gambling websites or even gambling games, games with feature-like gambling feature or like features, and often without age checks. And on top of that, we know that the way that gambling is marketed, it's very flashy. Sports betting is tied to football, rugby, all of those types of sports that has become very attractive. And then obviously the promise of quick money, and that's very appealing to our young learners. And yeah, it has become a growing concern in our schools, not just private schools, but public schools as well. And I think the biggest concern is that learners don't yet have the maturity to understand the consequences, and they very quickly fall into a pattern of chasing losses and borrowing money, lying to their parents, and then ultimately also neglecting schoolwork.
Yeah. So, Sibongile, is it a surprise that this is more prevalent among boys? Do we have accurate statistics on adolescents gambling?
I Clement, we do actually, and boys are more prone to actually gamble more than girls. But I think one of the biggest issues that we need to address is not only about gambling, but we also have what we call gamification. I think Ms. van der Merwe, Dr. van der Merwe, actually touched about the games. So you've got games that our kids play on their smartphones and their iPads that mimic gambling. And from that then trend, it becomes a learned behavior. So from that, we then see the prevalence or the increase in number of people or learners that want to actually to gamble.
So how seriously then?
And in terms of the schools, it's very serious, Clement. I'll tell you why. We've got a schools program that we actually do, which is called Taking Risks Wisely, where we go to all the schools across the country trying to create awareness about, the potential harmful effects of gambling. So the stories that have been told by Benedict are actually stories that we have had before, where learners, they take devices of their parents and register accounts under the names of their parents. Sure. Remember, in terms of our laws, they are not supposed to gamble. So what they do is they learn the behavior, either if their parents are gambling, so that's going to be a learned behavior, or from peer pressure from school, they will then use the devices of their parents to register their account because they can't register those accounts themselves. Now, what tends to happen is that it starts as an innocent activity and then it becomes a problem. We have had to intervene in the number of schools around Hammanskraal, actually Gauteng. You've heard in the news, I think last year, where learners fought and then they stabbed each other because of gambling in school. So it's quite a serious issue that we are faced with as a country. And again, which means that we need to make sure that we strengthen our regulations so that we limit the exposure of our kids from gambling activities.
Yeah, and Toby, speaking of regulations, I mean, the shift from physical gambling establishments to online platforms comes with regulatory challenges, but we've got that National Gambling Amendment Act that was passed in 2008, but it's never been enacted. So what current legislation do we rely on now, and when was it passed? Is it strong enough also to try and avert this from becoming a bigger crisis?
Thanks, Clement. I think that Sibongile alluded to the problem. It's not just children under 18s. It's actually a wider social issue, which relates to people who are becoming more and more addicted to gambling. And the numbers are quite staggering. Over R1 trillion a year, or last year, was spent on gambling of one sort or another, by far the majority of which was sports betting. And you're right, the legislation is very out of date. The National Gambling Act of 2004 does make protection of minors important to any gambling operator that's licensed. And the 2008 Act attempted to legalize what was called interactive gambling, but it's never been promulgated, as you pointed out. And that's a real problem, because since then, there's been an explosion in online gambling. And unfortunately, parents are just as complicit in this as the children, as was pointed out by Juane. Kids get hold of their devices and they can register. illegally using their parents' identity. So there are huge loopholes in the regulatory framework, not just in the regulations, but also in the ways in which gambling companies are sort of essentially getting away with things which under the radar, because we don't have any regulations which regulate not just online gambling, but things like advertising. I mean, every corner you drive down these days, you see a billboard advertising some gambling site or other, sports games, the lot. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. There is work in the pipeline, but we can chat about that a bit later if you want.
Yeah, maybe let's get into that now about the work, because I'm just thinking about the legislative vacuum that this brings when it comes to sports and online gambling.
It's concerning because the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition came to the Portfolio Committee 2 weeks ago with their legislative priorities. And it was surprising that gambling legislation was not one of them. So what we are having to do now, we, as in the Democratic Alliance, we've tabled, we're introducing a bill called the Remote Gambling Bill, which aims to fill the vacuum in the legislation. And we've consulted widely. We published the bill last October, and we've received submissions from a wide variety of stakeholders, lawyers, gambling operators, bookmakers. And it's a process that we're now undertaking to look at those submissions and draw the conclusions that we'll then have to bring to the committee.
Yeah.
But of course, the committee has to then establish a program which puts this bill onto the program, and it is yet to be actually tabled in Parliament. But it's certainly something which is a top priority for the DA.
Dr. van der Merwe, a lot of this betting, it appears to be happening in class and, of course, on school property. Do we need to start a conversation about schools and stricter cell phone policies? And how is that going to assist? Because at the end of the day, I mean, the kids could still, when they step out of the school premises, they can still, have access to their phones and then get onto these platforms. So what measures can we look at here to try and deal with it from the education and the school's perspective?
Yes, thanks, Clement. Yeah, well, I think, first of all, it's understandable that parents and schools feel worried when we see these behaviors, especially when it starts at these young ages. But when we talk about the school's role, I think it's important just to understand and clearly realize that it is the parents that are the primary guardians of their children's behavior. And even though the school can play a supporting role through discipline and through education, we must never totally absolve and take away the responsibility that actually vests with the parents. So the school's responsibility would, as you have clearly pointed out, be to create and maintain a safe and disciplined environment through their policies. But the focus of the school is the learning and the development of the child. So we should never lose that focus and should not lose sight of that being the responsibility of the school. But it is important that schools must have clear codes of conduct, they must have firm policies, and that would also include the cell phone use of learners. Learners must clearly know what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. So if gambling behavior were to happen at school or during a school on a school device, the school has a duty to act according to its rules, whether that means taking disciplinary measures or to refer the specific learner to counseling, because we know that this can become an addiction. It's actually more of a social problem, so therefore counseling is important. But it must be important that schools cannot monitor what happens in the learner's private lives or at home, but the learner can reinforce values. They can discourage gambling, but it cannot ultimately take over the role of monitoring and controlling the child's personal choices outside of the school. That responsibility ultimately rests with the parents.
And we can't preach that louder for the parents to be more vigilant and take that responsibility seriously. What else do you think the parents can do here, Dr. van der Merwe, in taking that responsibility to try and prevent and guard against the scourge?
Well, parents are the ones that buy the smartphones, they pay for the data and they allow access. I think very importantly is that parents must take the time to talk to their children about the dangers of gambling and other risky online behavior. Also, there are excellent tools and apps available that parents can use to monitor or even block certain sites and the apps on the different devices that the children use. So very much the parents must take up that responsibility. And I think also beyond the technology, parents need to create an open and a trusting relationship with their children, where the children can feel that they can talk about these types of issues. And parents should also set clear rules at home and model responsible behavior themselves. I think this isn't about spying on children, but it's about guiding and protecting them. And I think that's where the parents should play a very, very clear role.
Yeah, it's 26 minutes now after 11 o'clock. I'd like to take some calls, some WhatsApps as well as we continue this conversation to hear from some of our listeners. 011-883-0702 is the number to dial. WhatsApps on 072-702-1702.
Clement, what an interesting topic. I was watching a show whereby a child, I think the child was 16 years old, and then he won almost R1 million from the gaming show. The mom was so happy. She was even going to buy a house with that money. But you could see the child, he's so drained. Like the mom doesn't see the dangers. As long as she's receiving the money from the child, it's all good. But I could see the child, because when they were touring one of the houses, he just fell asleep in the couch because he's so tired. The mom says, no, he's gaming internationally with international people, so he sleeps late. She doesn't see the dangers. That is the problem. You could see the child is not well, but because mommy is getting money, she can now afford a house, a nice house. That's all that matters to parents. So, and it's very sad.
Hi, Clement. It's Vincent here in the West End, but I'm currently at home in Mpumalanga, Kwandebele, Almasdrefsi. Look, man, my take on the issue of gambling, I think the gambling companies have made it easy for us to access their websites, to access their apps, and also to be able to purchase these vouchers through our bank apps. So by so doing, they knew what they were doing, and they're making life easy for us, even to just, we can buy that a voucher for gambling and load it on your app and blow it away. So it being easy to access, I think it's one of the reasons why people are going into gambling in this huge number.
Hi Clement, I'm a mother to a 9-year-old, and one of these days we're sitting watching primetime TV. It must have been about 7:30 in the evening, and my child says to me, Betway ad comes up on TV, and I think they were showing the game with the airplane, the aviator game, where you make so much money in such little time. And my baby says to me, oh look mommy, that looks like such a cool game, I can make so much money off of it. And I was so taken aback, because now I must explain the concept of gambling to him and why that is not a game that you want to play. But it looks cool, it looks enticing, it looks exciting. I think that gambling ads should be banned altogether, especially on primetime TV. But I hate the amount of exposure that not only us as adults have, but also our children. They are overly exposed to gambling.
Yeah, this is really getting out of control. Yeah, and I wonder, and I'll get Sibongile to respond to this, I wonder how seriously these companies as well are taking underage gambling. And what's the solution? Must we make it difficult to access? Because part of the problem is that accessibility has made it easier for minors to engage in gambling activities, despite the legal restrictions prohibiting anyone under the age of 18 from participating. I will continue this conversation after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. It's 11:30. Bali, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The ANC-led coalition in the Joburg City Council has nominated the AIC's Margaret Arnolds to contest the vacant Speaker position. Arnolds, who currently serves as the city's finance MMC, previously held the role of Speaker before joining the mayoral committee. The council is set to elect a new Speaker today after Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu was ousted last week. Police are intensifying the fight against crime in the west of Joburg with a stop-and-search operation. Officers have stopped cars, delivery bikes and taxis in Roodepoort, but one driver has refused to produce his ID, claiming it violates his rights. Acting Provincial Commissioner Mbuso Khumalo is leading Operation Shanela, which aims to bring down crime in the area. And Liverpool player Diogo Jota has died in a car accident in Spain at the age of 28. The Portuguese forward was part of the team that won the Premier League title last season and helped his country win the UEFA Nations League title last month. His younger brother, Andre Felipe, also died in the accident. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Travelling in Protea Glen, we still have got that accident along the N12 West right near the R558. Delays from Cape Refute Drive. The N12 East is also affected. Please be on the lookout there. While travelling on the N1 North towards the Malibongwe off-ramp, do expect delays there. There's roadworks that are taking place. Please be on the lookout and approach with care. If you're travelling in Bedfordview, queuing traffic along the N3 North, approaching the Kilulis interchange. There's also queuing traffic on the N12 and R24 West between Edenville Road and the Kilulis interchange. Travelling in the city of Tshwane, there's some delays on the N1 South approaching Linwood Road. That's due to the roadworks that are taking place along this route, and traffic lights are out of order in Groenkloof at Christian de Wet and Euphius Road. They're also out of order in Centurion at Rohiscroll Road and Easter Road. Please be on the lookout and keep it safe on the roads. We'll have more at the top of the hour with Karabo Jali.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons,
3 to 6.
In terms of how the state can do this better, I mean, there is no shortage of VIP protection staff. You just have to look at the budgets. You can also look at the blue lights that are coming up fast behind you and say that these resources are available. Does the state prioritize in any way people who are corruption busters?
We're seeing more and more where organizations are creating a protection bubble around their investigators. We're seeing it moving a lot in the private sector. We're seeing municipalities and metros doing it.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
Winter's here, and so are the season's hottest deals. Whether you are powering through early mornings or cozying up on cold nights, Take A Lot is your one-stop winter shop for heaters, appliances, winter skincare, and everyday essentials. Shop smart, stay warm, and make winter your season with Take A Lot.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct to give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
When life changes, so should your savings plan. And when your goals evolve, your advice should evolve with them. With Momentum, advice meets your context. Catch 702 in conversation with Momentum on The Money Show next Wednesday, 9 July, as we unpack why context matters in financial advice. Discover how you can get the right support on your savings and investment journey, tailored to where you are and where you're going. That's 702 in conversation with Momentum next Wednesday on The Money Show with Stephen Grootes. Momentum, your journey to success on 702. Momentum's an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
25 minutes before 12 o'clock on our Thursday Dialogue. Today we are talking about the scourge of youth online gambling. There are people as young as 14 who are addicted to sports betting. And I think as parents, we need to do something about this. Schools, we need to pay attention to this because gambling is addictive. It's a social ill. And if we are going to sleep on this, we're going to wake up one day when the problem is much bigger. I've got Dr. van der Merwe, who is the Deputy CEO at the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools. We've got Sibongile Simelane Kuntana, who's the Executive Director of the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, and Toby Chance, the DA spokesperson on trade, industry and competition, who have been chatting to us this hour about this crisis and what we need to do to deal with it. I do have your calls and WhatsApps that are coming through. I'll come to them in a moment. Sibongile, I just want us to look at now the responsibility on the part of the companies, these gambling companies. How seriously are these companies taking underage gambling?
I think their responsibility, Clement, starts with them abiding with the laws and regulations of the country, what they do. The laws are very clear that minors are not allowed to gamble. So they do that, and they know that should they allow or be known to have allowed underage people to gamble, they can lose their license. So they have it's got serious repercussions for them to allow minors to gamble, and they don't do that. Now, how serious are they taking that responsibility? They take it very seriously, but I believe that as a country, we could step a little bit up, in terms of responsible gambling and minor protection. We all have been lamenting the fact that minors, they use their parents' devices to gamble. We've got technologies that can actually use algorithm to actually understand the person that is sitting behind the device. Now, if we want to protect our kids from gambling exposure, I believe that we need to actually put more checks and balances so that we actually prevent them from gambling. But the most important first stop is us limiting the exposure, the physical exposure towards advertising. Soccer matches on TV, gambling is there, it's advertised. Now, we need stricter norms and standards to be put in place so that we prevent our kids from seeing gambling in the first place. You've got sponsorships that sponsor minor leagues at school by the gambling operators. And we need to make sure that we actually, because remember the kids, they associate the brand with something exciting.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps let's limit sponsorship of minor leagues, especially school children, and try to focus on something else. We are not saying they must not support kids, but I think because kids, they've got limited, or schools, they've got limited finances. And this is where the gap comes in. And maybe we need to look at some other places where we can get money to fund the schools league in terms of soccer, not to rely on betting companies, because we are trying to protect the minors from gambling exposure. But how do we do that if the brand associated with gambling is constantly at their faces?
Yeah.
So it's difficult. But I believe that in terms of the law, they are abiding by the laws. And what do they do? For instance, Hollywood's Bet, through their Hollywood Foundation, they actually undertake taking risks wisely campaigns with our team. So they go to school just to say, stop gambling, or understand what are the consequences of gambling. But again, Clement, I think this is a touch and go, because like I'm saying, when we go on these taking risks wisely or public awareness campaigns with the brand that is associated with a certain and a specific product, which message is most likely to sound louder? It's not the message of saying that be aware about the dangers of gambling. The kids associate certain messages with certain brands, and that brings in the excitement. But I think we need to stress the responsibility of parents. Parents cannot delegate the responsibility of parenting to somebody else. Microsoft has put in measures for parents to make sure that in terms of the games that parents purchases, they actually monitor what is happening. Parents need to understand what is on their children's devices, the time that they spend. I mean, you've got apps that can actually limit the kids' exposure. Parents must do that. Limit how much time your kids spend on a device. Limit what games that they download, because if in so doing you are protecting them from actually downloading apps that they should not be downloading in the first place. If your child takes your phone, be interested in what they are doing with your phone. Don't let them or allow them to just disappear with your phone, because they download. Remember, some of our, like if you look at iOS, it's linked to your bank account, so you don't even at times need permission for anyone to actually, not to request the thing. The password. For instance, my kids, they know my password to my iPhone. So if they take the phone and download games, they can simply just, if you don't have a facial recognition, they can just use that passkey and download games. So we need to not delegate the responsibility of parenting as parents. Understand the ramifications of our kids being exposed to devices. Let's limit them. Let's be interested in what they are doing. In so doing, we are actually assisting the law, preventing minors from gambling.
Yeah. And Toby, the limit to exposure to advertising, do you think that's one of the ways to deal with this?
Yes, I do. But I want to pick up on what Sibongile said about technology. And technology has advanced in leaps and bounds in the last few years, particularly artificial intelligence, which I think can be used much more effectively in identity verification, not just at the time of registering on a site, but actually when you're using it. So the KYC, the know your customer, the biometrics and so on, and the AI following somebody as they're playing, these things can be used more effectively than they are currently being used to cut off access to people who are either minors or also excluded persons, people who voluntarily decided that they don't want to use online gambling. Then as far as the exposure and advertising is concerned, yes, I think that there's huge opportunities to tighten things up. I mean, if we look at things like tobacco and cigarette advertising and alcohol advertising, these are substances which have been banned for certain age groups, and that has led to changes in the advertising regulations. And I think that this is something that we have to look at more closely. For example, if we look at the sports betting scene, there is this whistle-to-whistle suggestion that's saying that during a game there shouldn't be any advertising by sports betting companies. There are suggestions that that these sports betting companies should not be able to advertise during certain times of the day, when youngsters probably won't be watching TV or engaging in social media activities. So a greater conversation also needs to be had between the banks and the cell phone companies. So, for example, removing on-ramps from banking apps onto betting platforms. These are the sorts of things that can be partially legislated, but also have to be agreed as a code of conduct, a voluntary code of conduct by all licensed operators in the industry.
Yeah. All right, 17 minutes now before 12 o'clock.
The Dialogue with Clement Manyathela.
It's not just another roundtable discussion.
Let's walk the talk on 702.
All right, I want to take some of your calls and WhatsApp voice notes now. Let's start with Francesca, who is a parliamentary research officer at Rise Mzansi. Francesca, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I imagine as Rise Mzansi, you guys have also proposed some interventions to address this.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for having me today. So our main priority at this moment is gambling advertising and the regulations pertaining it. So we desperately need some legislative and regulatory updates. But the main thing at the moment is regulations, because it's something that can be passed quite easily in comparison to new laws, and our regulations desperately need to be updated. To that end, we need to limit gambling advertising that exposes minors. And I mean, in this sense, there are several different ways of interventions. I mean, there's limiting advertisements on television programs, which needs to be enforced more strictly. There's limitations on physical advertisements near schools and institutions and places where children might visit. But there's also conversation that one has to have about the developing landscape of gambling advertising. So that pertains to social media, the use of targeted ads which companies can use, influencers who receive sponsorships from gambling advertisers or from gambling and sports betting companies. And in that sense, they also promote this as a valid form of income, which it is not. And that's sort of the main thing on that side. And then we also we are advocating for a strengthening in the enforcement and especially the regulatory bodies that we have that should be overseeing and sort of keeping an eye on this matter. And in that regard, the National Gambling Policy Council, which is the highest authority and meant to sort of at least make sure that provincial and national policies and regulations are integrated. They haven't sat since 2018, and I mean that's before we saw the explosion in online gambling and betting. The National Gambling Board itself hasn't had a functional board since 2014, which is over 10 years ago, which once again is before all of these explosive changes happened. And there's no way that one can, first of all, really update these regulations effectively or enforce them without these bodies being functional. So we've called upon the Minister on several occasions to update us on the progress of reconstituting these bodies, but also to strengthen the enforcement of the regulations. And I mean, to that end, the National Gambling Board have also highlighted, or the Minister highlighted a few weeks ago, that the National Gambling Board have identified advertisers that are not, that advertising is breaking these rules. But it's not really clear whether any real tangible consequences have followed from these identified violations.
Yeah, Francisca,
Clement, if I could just quickly come
yes,
in
yes,
there.
please, go ahead.
Just quickly on the National Gambling Policy Council, she's quite right, but it is actually sitting next week, the first time in probably 7 or 8 years, and it's very important that it's representing not just the National Gambling Board, but also all the provincial gambling licensors. So we're going to be very interested to see what the outcome of that meeting is.
Yeah, really looking forward to that and what it will produce. Here's some WhatsApp voice notes that have come through.
I had an interesting discussion with a young man the other day, Clement, where I was listening to his interaction with his parents, and I said to him, sometimes it seems to me that you want to be smarter than your parents. And that was the basis of the discussion. And then he made this startling comment. I say startling because it is startling. He says, no, they're wiser than me in most things. But when it comes to electronics and comes to phones, I'm much smarter than them. They don't know phones and electronics and the apps as much as I know them, or to the extent that I know them, he said. And that's alarming because your child knows that you don't know, and he knows how he's going to circumvent what he's trying to do behind your back. So it's not easy to say the parents must police it. The children understand this technology much better than the parents.
Yeah, Dr. van der Merwe, that's a fair point there, right? Because, some kids are just more advanced in as far as their knowledge about these phones and technology. So they're able to even hide, these gambling sites so that parents won't even see them. So it also becomes a tricky thing for parents to provide effective oversight.
Yes, no, it does. It does. I know we know we live in a technological era where learners completely understand the technology, whilst your older generation might not completely be aware of exactly how it works and how to enforce and use specific tools that they have available to address these types of issues. And I think that's where our schools can play a big role. We want to see our schools advocate and speak to the parents to help the parents identify what the types of issues are, what is available to parents to try and help and address what we know that learners are currently doing and facing. So I think advocating and enabling our parents to understand and to realize what they can do to ensure that the children aren't being harmed, that's quite important.
Yeah, and just still with you, Dr. van der Merwe, do you think that schools could do more to educate their students, these learners, about the dangers of gambling?
Yeah, well, I think I've had that question in the past, whether schools should look at gambling awareness programs. I think while that might be very helpful, I don't think that should be a standard practice, but it might be useful if you know that it is an issue in your school. Invite an external speaker of an NGO or a gambling expert to come talk to the learners, to speak to the problem that we're currently facing in the community. I think schools should focus on equipping learners with strong life skills and values. That's the one thing I think that's been neglected in our schools. But the values should be the focus. We must teach our learners to think critically, to practice self-control, and to make good decisions. To help them avoid these types of harmful behaviors, not just gambling, but as that's the topic today, that will help as well. So rather than formal gambling programs, I think a school should really aim to reinforce the kind of values that guide learners in all areas of life, and that's where our schools can play a very big role.
Yeah. Let me read some messages and get your responses, Bongile and Toby, as well, to some of the suggestions, but also inputs from some of our listeners. Let's start with the voice note, and I'll read some text as well.
I don't understand why they're able to advertise gambling. I thought that years ago it was stopped. Same with obviously the cigarettes, etc. It's like allowing a drug pusher to have free access to your kids and glamorize it. It's absolutely shocking, and that's it should be dealt with in a legal manner, but parents must just stop it. It is so addictive and it's so destructive, and we're talking about kids. And the other thing is that I saw last night an hour of sport on SABC2, where it was like the whole team, from the trainers to the bookies, actually giving advice on the Durban July. And every 10 minutes there were adverts from the sports betting. I mean, that's crazy. Hope you can do something to stop the destruction of our young people's lives.
Yeah, something has got to be done. On the WhatsApp line, Rapula says, "Hi Clement, I have a colleague who is in debt due to gambling through her phone. She is still young and I don't know how to help her. She's always on her phone. I have a chance. I have to share with her my lunch because she has no money at all." And Sibongile, I don't know, maybe if you can respond to this one for people who know their loved ones, friends, colleagues, who are struggling with gambling, who are young and they want to assist. How can they assist? I'll come back to you in a moment to respond to that. Another one says, "Clement, it's true, this gambling thing of kids in schools is a big problem. What I want to know, though, from your guests is, I'm not sure it's relevant to them, but the kids also do trading a lot. Does it also have age restrictions? These kids have a lot of money in these trade accounts. I'm worried." They said it's extra income to help their parents. And then another person says, "Clement and the team, the kids are more technologically advanced than us. We may block them, but they have a way around technology. I'm just so tired of my child and the phone." Another one says, "Clement, good morning to you and the amazing team and guests there. On the issue of young kids gambling, my son was a victim and he was helping the other guys to gamble because they saw he's good at it. I would like to assist I'd like to assist Mams Bongile in the Responsible Gambling Board. I'm a graffiti artist and I own over 200 walls nationally, and I would like to use these walls to drive the message of underage gambling and the dangers of it. I would like to do an awareness campaign throughout our wall billboards and at schools, doing awareness campaign using graffiti. I would like to offer my skills for free to uplift our communities. Please put me in contact with her if possible. This is incredible. Thank you so much for sending us this message. I will put you in contact with Sibongile. Sibongile, yeah, you can come in.
Okay, Clement, if anyone listening has a relative, a friend, a child that is actually has a gambling problem or a gambling addiction, we actually provide free treatment and counseling. They can contact us on 0800 006 008, or they can send us a WhatsApp on 076 675 0710. We do also provide treatment and counseling for minors. We've got a social services department or unit that deals with minors. It's headed by social workers. So we provide treatment of any minors that are actually addicted to gambling. But I also just want to make parents aware. I think we are stressing more about gambling. We are not talking much about gamification. We need to be aware. Our kids, they use Sims and Roblox, and those are actually very addictive games. So even if your child is actually addicted to gaming, we are able to assist, even though it's not physical cash that our kids get, it's actually tokens. And from those tokens, they then, develop a taste to actually say that maybe I can create physical cash. But what also is important is that we've got something called loot boxes. These games, when our kids play, they actually have messages that pop up, and some of those messages, they're actually gambling advertising, not by South African operators, by international operators. Now, we actually have a huge loophole where even international operators that are not necessarily registered or regulated by South Africa, they are actually operating within our borders. And I'm sure Toby can actually attest to this. You find them on social media, and I'm not even sure, Clement, how can I explain that? We not only have porous borders, physical borders, we also have online problem with operators that are not regulated in South Africa.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So the messages that are being shared also on the WhatsApp line of how much money people have lost due to this online gambling, just staggering. Toby, your last words here?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge tension here, Clement, between the operators' desire to make money, make profits, and their social responsibility, which is undeniable. They do have it. But obviously the impulse to get out there and persuade people to use their programs and their systems and their games and so on is the impulse that drives their business. So the question for regulators is how to balance the social requirement to protect people on the one hand, but also to allow freedom to trade. That's the thing that I think the Policy Council has got to dwell on next week, and which the department and our committee has to also apply its mind to, because we can't just let the status quo prevail. We have to do something, and these contributions from my colleagues on this call and the people that are phoning in are very, very helpful to help us deliberate.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Johan van der Merwe, with the Federation of Governing Bodies for South African Schools, Sibongile Simelane Quntana, who's with the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, and Toby Chance, DA spokesperson for Trade, Industry and Competition. I appreciate you guiding us through this conversation on our Thursday dialogue. It's a minute before 12.
Coming up on the Midday Report with Mandy Wheeler.
How are you doing, Mandy?
I'm good, thank you, Clement.
What's popping vandag?
Sure, so that breaking news coming in the last hour that the Liverpool and Portugal forward Diogo Jota and his brother have died
So
in a car
tragic.
crash.
Didn't he just get married 2 weeks ago?
Married a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Just won the league with Liverpool, done so well with Portugal. Just terrible. It just shows you how short life is. And yeah, we'll pick up on that. Fraud examiners and auditing industry experts and leaders responding to the murder of the Ekurhuleni forensic audit chief, Bonang Mohale. The city of Joburg is electing a new council speaker today. We'll continue that debate that we had yesterday with the Correctional Services Minister.
I played your interview on the show today. I really enjoyed it.
We got
I'm
so
still not
much
convinced
response
by him.
Yeah. I was like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And then John Perlman also did a great interview with Jix yesterday. So we're going to continue that conversation because we didn't get to finish it yesterday.
I also spoke to Justice Cameron as well, just to respond to your interview with Minister of Correctional Services as well.
And then our book of the week is about the untold stories of political activists executed during apartheid.
All right, that's what's coming up on the Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. Thank you for listening to the show. We'll be back tomorrow between 9 and 12 for the Friday edition of the Clement Manyathela Show. Have a beautiful Thursday. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. The state in the murder case against 12 National Defence Force members has painted a grim image of the Army's Special Forces, fueling further claims of a rogue unit. This follows the arrest of a dozen soldiers last month on charges of murder, kidnapping, fraud and the obstruction of justice. They're accused of orchestrating the 2023 murder of Hawks investigator Frans Matipa. The 12 men are currently appearing in the Randburg Magistrates Court for a continuation of their bail hearing. Nugukanya Mdambo is there.
At the time of his murder, Hawks investigator Frans Matipa was probing the Special Forces' alleged involvement in the kidnapping of Abdullah Abediga and his bodyguard Kadir Abatoso. In open court during the bail hearing, the state disclosed what it believes were the circumstances that led to Matipa's murder. The events date back to December 2022 when CCTV footage from the Mall of Africa, Central Freeway footage and cell phone data implicate some of the accused in Abediga and Abatoso's disappearance. While their whereabouts were never confirmed, the state says they were later killed by the SANDF security forces. The state says Matipa was hot on their heels and was killed as part of a cover-up. The bail hearing continues. Nogukanya Mdambo, Eyewitness News.
The ANC-led coalition in the Joburg City Council has nominated the AIC's Margaret Arnolds to contest the vacant speaker position. Arnolds, who currently serves as the city's finance MMC, previously held the role of speaker before joining the mayoral committee. The council is currently voting to elect a new speaker after Action SA's Nobuhle Mthembu was ousted last week. Arnolds is up against the DA's Alex Christians and the UDM's Yongama Zikebe for that position. DA caucus leader Belinda Kaiser Echiozonjoku.
We are nominating Councillor Alex Christians. Councillor Christians is the former chair of chairs in the council, and we have full confidence that he's likely to also emerge. Obviously, as the DA, we've already resolved months ago that when a vacancy occurs, the DA will always field the candidate.
The Hawks Serious Commercial Crimes Unit has arrested 2 suspects for the contravention of the National Credit Act and fraud. The suspects were issuing loans to social grants recipients for a fee. In return, SASSA cards and identity documents were kept as assurance for the repayment of the loans. Hawks spokesperson Siabulela Vukubi says the suspects will appear in the Bellville Magistrates Court tomorrow.
The matter was reported to the Hawks, and on the 2nd of July 2025, a search and seizure warrant was executed in Delft. Various SASSA cards, bank cards, identity documents, and an undisclosed amount of cash were seized.
To this now, police are intensifying the fight against crime in the west of Johannesburg with a stop and search operation. Officers have stopped cars, delivery bikes and taxis in Roodepoort, but one driver refused to produce his ID, claiming it violated his rights. Acting Provincial Commissioner Mbuso Kumalo is leading that operation. Shanela Mongezikoko reports.
The Roodepoort police station became the staging ground for this latest crime-fighting push, with police, JMPD, Home Affairs officials and even local clergy joining the briefing. Multidisciplinary teams fan out throughout the area, pulling over vehicles, checking licenses and verifying identities, an effort police say is necessary to root out illegal activity. Tensions boiled over this morning with some resistance